Chapter 1189. The Palace of the Ice Emperor, which had been buried under the ice and snow of the northern river for thousands of years, was once again opened. It was like an ancient god that had been picked up by time. In the huge palace, it was magnificent, luxurious, and dazzling. In the sky above the frozen throne, an ice-blue jade stone that seemed to have come from the boundless universe was placed there. It's the Ice Divine Stone. Everyone's attention was instantly attracted. The Ice Divine Stone was an item refined by the Ice Emperor. It was a supreme divine item condensed by a supreme almighty from the northern river's endless winter energy. It was rumored that its power was so strong that it could instantly freeze 1,000 miles, causing snow to fall for 10,000 miles, and everything on Earth would be sealed in the winter snow region. It's mine. No one can snatch it from me. Humph. That will depend on your ability. Huan Yu Palace's flower snake and the Imperial Sword Sect's Luo Lu did not say anything and immediately started a fierce battle for the Ice Divine Stone. As they charged towards the ice-sealing throne at the back of the main hall, powerful quintessential essence auras were released from their bodies. Flower Snake raised one hand, and his seemingly boneless arm actually stretched towards Luo Lu in an extremely twisted posture. As he moved, Flower Snake's arm directly transformed into a dozen bright and strong snakes. The snakes opened their mouths, and their fangs were coated with poison as they pounced towards Luo Lu. Umph. A hint of disdain appeared in Luo Lu's eyes. He clenched his 5 fingers, and a piercingly cold long sword fell into his hand. A cold light arrived first, and then the sword shot out like a dragon. An incomparably sharp sword beam shot out diagonally. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The dozen or so large snakes' heads were instantly chopped off by the powerful sword beam, revealing its sharpness like an aurora. Flower Snake's expression slightly changed. He flipped his hand, and his other arm became incomparably sharp. Then, it actually turned into a poisonous scorpion stinger. The stinger flickered with a dim light and extended infinitely, tearing through the air and piercing towards Luo Lu. The latter's pupils slightly constricted. He held his long sword horizontally and used the body of the sword to block in front of him. Ding! A crisp sound rang out, and sparks flew everywhere. True essence surged, and the sharp, poisonous scorpion stinger firmly struck the middle of the long sword in Luo Lu's hand. A ring of dark green venom spread on the sword, directly corroding the true inner force lingering on the sword. The corner of Luo Lu's eyes narrowed. The poison released by this woman was so overbearing that it could even corrode true inner force. The flower snake raised her eyebrows and revealed a coquettish smile. "Don't fight with me," Luo Lu replied with disdain. "A mere woman, other than using poison. What else can she do?" Flower Snake giggled. "Let's give it a try then. Come." Luo Lu stood up with his sword in hand. The flowery snake scorpion needle was coated with poison. The two forces collided with each other in the main hall, causing violent shockwaves to hit every corner of the ice palace. Deep and neat sword marks appeared on the walls and the icicles. The colorful snake's venomous stinger had a terrifying penetrative power. The 10-meter-wide icicle was easily pierced through like tofu. The dissolved venom was extremely corrosive and emitted a dangerous aura that could kill a person upon contact. Bang! The two people's palms solidly collided with each other. The fierce palm potential and the soft hidden strength were like the impact of a mountain and a flood. A thick true essence light spread out from the palms of the two people. Both of them were sent flying backwards, their bodies spinning in the air. Then, one on the right, one on the left, one on the right, they rushed towards the Ice God Stone above the frozen throne. They arrived in front of the Ice Divine Stone almost at the same time. Luo Lu stretched out his palm and used his true inner force to form a huge golden hand. Flower Snake's arm once again turned into a huge, sturdy snake. The golden hand and dozens of snakes grabbed at the Ice Divine Stone at the fastest speed. However, at the instant that the two of them came into contact with the Divine Ice Stone, a strand of white, profound energy that went straight to the bone was suddenly released, and the Divine Ice Stone erupted with a dazzling, icy blue light. After that, circles of spiraling frost blade cyclones swept out in all directions. Bang! For example, a whirlpool storm that erupted in an instant. A violent force that was comparable to a torrent burst out from within. The moment the golden hand and dozens of snakes touched the ice divine stone, they were all crushed by the sharp, spiraling frost blades. Both of their expressions changed, and then they were directly thrown back by the violent force. Buzz, buzz. At the same time, the entire ice palace began to shake uneasily. It was as if an ancient seal that had been sealed for tens of thousands of years had been activated. Lines of eye-catching light patterns appeared on the walls of the main hall. Every light pattern swayed with a crystal-clear flowing light. The strange light patterns intertwined with each other, like a huge net that covered the walls. The huge net spread to every corner of the ice palace at a speed visible to the naked eye, and from all directions, it circled towards the entrance of the ice palace. It was as if the huge net was about to seal the door. This is... Everyone's heart suddenly surged with a bad premonition. Meanwhile, Flower Snake and Luo Lu looked at each other, and their eyes once again looked at the ice divine stone floating above the frozen throne. Luo Lu's eyes turned cold, and a cold light flashed in them. He suddenly backhanded his sword, and the dense sword shadows shrouded Flower Snake like thousands of arrows. Flower Snake's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly responded. However, in this short moment, Luo Lu immediately seized the initiative. His arrogant sword momentum once again flew towards the ice divine stone. Abnormally dense, true inner force gathered on his palms and arms. Looking at the ice divine stone in front of him, his eyes were filled with an intense desire. But a second before Luo Lu was about to get the ice divine stone, Quang Deng, a thunderous sound stacked up, and a sudden attack of a lightning pillar whizzed towards him, containing a terrifying power. The lightning pillar directly crossed between Luo Lu and the ice divine stone. Lightning arcs bloomed, and electricity crisscrossed. Bang! The violent power poured down, and Luo Lu was immediately shaken back. Whoosh! Rapid air waves surged, and a surging power spread out. In front of Luo Lu, below the ice divine stone, there was suddenly another young figure with a proud aura. The hearts of everyone present were startled. Even Flower Snake's eyes were filled with a trace of surprise. Looking at the figure standing in the air, Luo Lu's face immediately darkened. "It's you again. You're simply courting death," he shouted fiercely. At the same time, Shifeng Zi, Long Xuan Shuang, and Noni entered the palace with the little girl. When he saw the crystal blue light patterns all over the palace walls, Shifeng Zi frowned and then shouted to Chu Hen, "There's not much time left. The ice hall is about to be closed." Closed? Everyone's expression changed. Luo Lu's eyes surged with killing intent, and Chu Hen's face was also as cold as frost, and his deep eyes were filled with traces of coldness. "Who will die? It's not certain, huh?" Luo Lu was so angry that he laughed, and then a shocking sword momentum erupted from his body. His face was cold, and as fierce as ice. "Nobody, I'll cut you into 1,000 pieces right now." Cut into 1,000 pieces. Shing, waves of sharp sword cries resounded, and endless dazzling golden sword rays rapidly intertwined and converged on Luo Lu's long sword. The thick sword shadows intersected with each other and rapidly fused. In an instant, an illusory, golden-scaled divine dragon suddenly rose behind Luo Lu. "Go to hell." Trash! Roar! The sword was like a shocking dragon, shaking the heavens and earth. The entire ice hall was enveloped by Luo Lu's aura. Shifeng Zi and Long Xuan Shuang had solemn expressions, and there was a trace of worry in their eyes. Luo Lu brandished his sword, and the golden scale dragon behind him flowed along with the sword light, attacking Chu Hen with its claws and fangs bared. Facing the opponent's sword that contained the power to destroy the heavens, a ball of black flame surged in Chu Hen's eyes, and then a strange black light rose from his body. It was accompanied by a series of dark golden ancient runes and secret scrolls. The dense black light fused with the dark golden runes and surged toward Chu Hen's right arm. The surrounding space faintly trembled, and a desolate and ancient aura of the great Tao erupted from Chu Hen's body. In an instant, Chu Hen's right hand powerfully punched out, directly meeting the golden-scaled dragon image that was whistling towards him. Boom! An incomparably heavy explosion immediately surged between heaven and earth, and a violent black flame mixed with countless dense sword chi wantonly flew in all directions. Beams of sword light flew out and struck the walls and stone pillars of the ice hall, leaving behind countless deep marks. The entire ice hall shook violently. But, to everyone's disbelief, Chu Hen actually blocked Luo Lu's startling dragon sword with his bare hands. Bang! Another violent explosion rang out, causing Luo Lu's expression to abruptly change. In an instant, a black pillar of spring directly pierced through the golden-scaled dragon silhouette and heavily smashed downwards. Bang! A circle of condensed black light spread out in front of Luo Lu. His arm trembled violently, and the sword in his hand almost flew out. Bastard! Luo Lu's eyes widened in anger, and an even more surging murderous aura filled the air. I'm going to kill you. Oomph. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth raised in a mocking smile. I'm afraid you won't have this chance. What? Everyone's heartstrings trembled. What? Along with the sound of his voice, an obscure and astonishing power filled the air. Chu Hen's palms faced each other, and strands of blue light quickly overflowed from his fingertips and gathered in his palms. In the blink of an eye, a rhombus-shaped energy body about 20 to 30 centimeters wide floated in the center of Chu Hen's palms. The rhombus-shaped crystal was very bright and beautiful, flashing with gorgeous light. A huge amount of power was completely compressed within it. Its resplendent light illuminated the entire ice hall. Magnificent Star Jade? Long Xuan's beautiful eyes widened, and her face was filled with astonishment. Huan Yu Palace's flower snake's gaze also darkened, and he blurted out, "This is the Northern Star Art. You're from the martial sect." Chu Hen's eyes were like stars, and his palm moved. Star chest seal. Hiss, accompanied by the sharp sound of the air being torn apart, a rapid wave of air dragged through the air. The magnificent Star Jade in Chu Hen's hand was like an arrow that had left the bow. It was like a shooting star, and it shot toward Luo Lu in the sky in front of it. The latter's pupils rapidly shrank to the size of a needle. An unprecedented panic appeared in his eyes. Bang! A dull explosion reverberated in the air, and a circle of blood mist danced in the air. A beam of blue meteor light tore through the air and directly struck Luo Lu's body, instantly piercing through his chest. Luo Lu's eyes were wide open, and his face was deathly pale. He lowered his head, and his eyes were filled with dense disbelief. Chapter 1190. Magnificent Star Jade. It's Beichenju. You're from the martial sect. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the sharp blue aurora stunned everyone's soul. Star Battle Seal. Like a 1,000-year-old jade shuttle chasing after the moon, it pierced through Luo Lu's chest with an unstoppable force. Blood rained down from the sky, and a fist-sized hole appeared in Luo Lu's chest. At this moment, the entire ice hall fell into an unprecedented silence. Their faces were filled with unprecedented shock and astonishment. Blood splattered, and his internal organs were smashed. Luo Lu's eyes were filled with unwillingness and hatred, and his face was distorted. I'll kill you. Have a safe trip. I won't send you off. Chu Hen's eyes were cold, and he stretched out his palm. Chi. Dozens of intertwining dark blue lightning bolts pierced through the sky like dragons. An endless destructive aura surged over, and Luo Lu's eyes reflected the sharp lightning. No! Bang! Accompanied by a rapid and violent explosion, the thunderbolt force blasted down. Under everyone's horrified gazes, Luo Lu's body exploded into a bloody mist. Imperial Sword Sect, Luo Lu. In an instant, he died in the ice hall. This was a turn of events that no one had expected. There was no room for mercy. Chu-Hen's methods were cold and merciless, starting from the blue hole at the bottom of the northern river and almost killing Shifeng Zi and Noni. Luo Lu's fate was already determined. At the same time, the bright light patterns that covered the walls of the ice hall had already spread to the entrance of the hall. The wall at the entrance of the hall actually showed a strange distortion. It was like a melting wax wall. The area of the door was rapidly shrinking. It was obvious that this restriction would completely freeze the entire palace. Even the blood of the Northern River Lost clan could not open it again. There's no time, Shifeng Zi reminded. The Imperial Sword Sect disciples were already preparing to leave. Once Luo Lu died, the remaining Cheng Xiong and the others did not even have the guts to attack Chu-Hen. Everyone from Huanyu Hall looked at Flower Snake. The latter's gaze was still filled with unwillingness as he stared at the divine ice stone behind Chu-Hen. Flower Snake suddenly changed into a coquettish smile and said, "I say, little brother of the martial sect, how about giving me the ice god stone? No matter what request you have, I will be able to satisfy it." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu-Hen's eyes turned cold, and a chill erupted from his body. With a flip of his hand, he took out the blue sky sword. Swish! The blue Ran sword flashed out of his palm like a streak of flowing light, attacking behind Chu-Hen. Hiss! First, there was a trembling sound in the air. Then, the blue sky sword was firmly nailed to a huge ice pillar. At the same time, there was also a finger-sized poisonous snake nailed to the icicle. The venomous snake's body was pierced by the blue sky sword. It twisted its body and struggled, but it was unable to move. Flower Snake's expression changed. He did not expect Chu-Hen to be so vigilant. Without any hesitation, Flower Snake leaped and dashed towards the square spirit pool in the center of the hall. "Since I can't get the Ice Divine Stone, no one else can." As soon as he finished speaking, Flower Snake raised a shockingly surging palm energy towards the square spirit pool. Bang! The huge square spirit pool exploded immediately. The snow soul essence that had gathered in the pool was like a surging wave that soared into the sky. In an instant, an extremely cold cyclone of cold air rose up and spread out around the hall. Wherever the terrifying snow soul essence's cold air reached, layers of thick ice immediately formed. The faces of the Imperial Sword Sect and Huanyu Hall's disciples in front were filled with horror. Before they could react, they were frozen into ice sculptures by the terrifying energy contained in the snow soul essence. The howling frost spread all the way and surged towards Shifeng Zi and Long Xuanshuang. A cold light flashed across Shifeng Zi's old eyes. An extremely dense Reiki energy erupted from his Naiwan palace. The Reiki energy that blended with each other gathered in front of him and transformed into a dazzling and luxurious tree shadow. The bone-piercing cold surged and hit the tree shadow, solidifying into ice. The snow soul essence spread wantonly and accelerated the speed at which the ice hall's door closed. As the dense cold energy spread, the net-like light patterns on the wall shone brightly. The ice hall's door melted rapidly, and the exit instantly shrunk to less than half a meter wide. Shifeng Zi turned pale with fright. "Oh no!" Flower Snake revealed a complacent smile. He turned around and glanced at Chu-Hen. "Stay here forever." As soon as he finished speaking, Flower Snake quickly dashed to the melting entrance of the hall. After that, a dazzling light surged out from his body, and then his body actually became slender and long, directly transforming into a multicolored slender snake. He twisted his body and quickly swam out of the narrow exit. Crack! The moment Flower Snake stepped out, in the next second, the entire palace's door fused together, and the only exit was completely sealed. A thick layer of ice directly sealed the entire hall. Streaks of dazzling blue patterns extended upwards and enveloped every area of the palace. The cold energy that permeated the palace gradually calmed down. However, Shifeng Zi's face was filled with seriousness. He looked at Chu Hen and then at Long Xuan Xuan. He clenched his teeth and shook his head with a sigh. That flower snake was unexpectedly vicious. In order to trap them, he actually killed his own companions. All the disciples of the Imperial Sword Gate and Huanyu Palace were turned into ice sculptures. The fear they felt before they died could be clearly seen. They probably would not have thought that they would die in such a manner. Looking at the unbridled cold energy that permeated the air and the ice hall that was covered with restrictive light patterns, Chu Hen's eyes surged with traces of deep coldness. He looked at Shifeng Zi and Long Xuan Xuan and did not say anything. He turned to face the ice divine stone that was floating above the ice throne. Chu Hen stepped on the air and walked toward the ice divine stone. With every step he took, the temperature in the air became colder. When he was in front of it, Chu Hen slowly stretched out his right hand towards the ice divine stone. Buzz! A strong repulsive force was released from the ice divine stone. The spiraling cold energy was like a whirlpool formed by a frost blade, emitting an extremely strong grinding force. Facing the terrifying energy ripples transmitted from above, Chu Hen's thoughts moved and a domineering black light was released, covering his entire arm. These 2 days, the flowers and gifts from my brothers have been very helpful. This feeling is like returning to the time when Martial King Deity was first written. Every month, we would fight for the rankings. It was very hot-blooded and passionate. However, what I want to say is, my brothers, please do not randomly subscribe to some books that you don't read just to gather flowers for me. That is too much of a waste of money. If you have flowers, then donate. If you don't, then forget it. Don't waste money to buy books that you don't read. Also, when you give gifts, you must say that children should never give gifts. Students who do not have their own independent source of income are all children. It is not easy for parents to earn money. Everyone should cherish it. If you guys give me gifts, I am ashamed to accept it. You guys subscribing to the original chapters is already the greatest support. Of course, tycoons, feel free to do as you please. That was all I had to say. Chapter 1191. When Chu Hen came into contact with the ice divine stone, a powerful ripple of energy was released. A spiral of ice swirled out like a whirlpool of frost, radiating with an extremely powerful grinding force. Chu Hen's eyes darkened slightly. Shortly afterwards, a domineering ball of black light was released from his body. The strange, dense black light was like the flames of hell, enveloping Chu Hen's arms. His arms seemed like the hands of a demonic god. Bang! A series of muffled explosions erupted in the air. The domineering, profound ice chi and the strange black light collided violently. Both of Chu Hen's arms directly pierced through the layer of extremely cold ice vortex, firmly grasping the ice divine stone in his hands. Whoosh! Waves of frost seeped out, and a thin layer of ice immediately condensed on Chu Hen's hands. Behind him, Shifeng Zi and Long Xuan Xuan both furrowed their eyebrows in shock. It really is the ice divine stone after all. Its power is so terrifying. Chu Hen murmured softly. Soon after, Chu Hen's pupils congealed and a ball of purple flame spread out. Kacha! The ice crystals that covered his arm immediately burst and shattered into pieces. The power of the sacred demonic pupil body and the chaotic body intertwined at the same time, immediately suppressing the icy whirlpool from the ice divine stone. Chu Hen exhaled gently. With a thought, his violet palace of true energy opened, and a whirlpool of true energy quickly spun before him. Along with the powerful ripples of energy, the ice divine stone immediately turned into an illusory light after being enveloped by the black light and purple flames, fusing into Chu Hen's body. Afterwards, Chu Hen flew down and flew towards where Shifeng Zi and Long Xuan Xuan were. Meow! Seeing that Chu Hen had returned, Yin Beast Noni softly called out. Chu Hen first glanced at the little girl in Long Xuan Xuan's arms. He was still in a deep slumber. It was obvious that what had happened had given her quite a fright. Even her blood can't open the seal? Chu Hen asked. Shifeng Z shook his head. No, this is a newly activated restriction. I think it's to prevent the Ice God Stone from being taken away, so it shouldn't be of any use. Chu Hen nodded. Then he said, step back a bit. The two of them understood and retreated to the side with Noni and the little girl. Buzz. The space trembled slightly, and a thick airflow surged recklessly. Dense black light and dark golden ancient runes overflowed together and wrapped around Chu Hen's arm. A strange aura of desolation spread out. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he punched out. In an instant, a majestic aura that was as ferocious as a torrent erupted. A peerlessly powerful black beam of light struck the location where the Ice Palace's door had originally been. Bang! A heavy explosion sounded, and tens of thousands of thunderbolts surged out. The entire hall shook violently, and the beautiful light patterns on the surrounding walls glowed with a dazzling light. Then, with a boom, sound of violent recoil force turned around. Chu Hen's expression changed slightly, and he immediately dodged to the side. The violent reverberation force wantonly poured down, directly shattering the disciples of the Huanyu Hall and the Imperial Sword sect, who had been frozen into ice sculptures behind them. Shifeng Zi and Long Xuan were secretly shocked, and their expressions became more and more serious. The former shook his head. It's useless. This restriction is too strong. It's very difficult to forcefully break it. Not necessarily, Chu Hen denied. No matter how strong a restriction was, it would definitely have its weakest point. As long as he continued to attack, he would be able to break the restriction. After saying that, the demon Ice Sacred Body's bloodline boundary in Chu Hen's body quietly activated, and his eyes were suffused with traces of demonic purple light. However, at this moment, a ray of light suddenly flashed through Chu Hen's mind. It was like a shooting star that streaked across the night sky. Following that, the purple light in his eyes gradually faded, and the aura he released also retracted. I have an idea. Chu Hen turned around and looked at the two of them. What? Long Xuan asked in confusion. Shifeng Zi narrowed his old eyes and received the deep meaning in Chu Hen's eyes. He could not help but reply in a deep voice. You mean? Chu Hen nodded. From the looks of it, there's no place more suitable than here. After a short exchange of glances, Shifeng Zi also nodded in agreement. Sure. Chu Hen looked at Long Xuan, and his throat moved slightly as he said word by word, I want to raise your bloodline boundary here. Wow. Long Xuan's heartstrings faintly trembled. She looked at Chu Hen's calm eyes, and her jade-like hands could not help but lightly clench into fists. This was also the reason why they came to the North River. After a series of preparations, they even obtained the Ice God's Stone, the most difficult condition to complete. In this way, everything was ready. Think about it, Chu Hen said in a deep voice. Long Xuan replied without hesitation, No need to think about it. I'll listen to you. Without any hesitation. Unconditional trust. This was Long Xuan. Because he was Chu Hen. The two of them looked at each other, and Chu Hen smiled warmly. Then he said to Shifeng Zi, Senior, in your current state, can you set up the derivation profound formation? Chu Hen boy, you really look down on this old man. That's good. I'll leave the talisman formation to you. As he spoke, Chu Hen took out an exquisite small bottle and handed it to the other party. Inside is Chu Long's bone marrow, the essence extracted from the blood refinement ghost flower and the 5-leaf rain dew grass. Shifeng Zi nodded and received the bottle. Then, Chu Hen took out a small wooden box and handed it to Long Xuan. Body strengthening pill. Long Xuan took the box and received it. At the same time, Chu Hen carried the injured Yinyang beast Noni with one hand and the little girl with the other, and retreated to the corner of the hall. Shifeng Zi and Long Xuan looked at each other. The latter said, Senior, I'll leave it to you. Shifeng Zi nodded and walked to the empty space in the middle of the ice hall. One had to say, the area of the ice hall was really big. Because of this, Shifeng Zi had ample space to display his skills. He let out a deep breath, and his pair of old eyes suddenly became sharp and sharp. A Grandmaster's heroic and majestic aura swept out. Shifeng Zi put his palms together, and his 10 fingers formed a series of seals. In an instant, dazzling talisman characters were born on his fingertips. The dense talisman characters quickly assembled and began to turn into dazzling array patterns that spread in all directions. Chapter 1192. The land of the North River was frozen for thousands of miles. In the ice palace, which had been buried under endless ice and snow for thousands of years, wisps of dense ice mystic mist floated in the air. In the middle of the spacious hall, a dazzling array with luxurious light patterns was gradually taking shape under Shifeng Zi's control. The dazzling array patterns intertwined with each other and gathered into a mysterious and complicated pattern with a myriad of brilliance. Derivation Mystic Array. The diameter of the entire array was more than 100 feet wide, almost occupying a quarter of the entire surface area of the ice palace. A steady stream of Reiki energy emerged from Shifeng Zi's Naiwan Palace. Under his control, the array continued to be perfected compared to his usual ease of doing as he pleased. Shifeng Zi's eyes were full of caution at this moment. It could be seen that he was very cautious about this derivation mystic array in front of him. There was no room for any mistakes. At the corner of the ice palace, Chu Hen leaned against the wall and looked at Long Xuan, who was not far away, with a gentle look in his eyes. The latter sat on the ground with her eyes closed and entered a state of meditation. She had to be in the best state to deal with what was about to happen next. Next to Chu Hen, the little girl from the North River Lost Tribe was curled up against him. Chu Hen had purposely put a thick shirt on her body. Although she had suffered a great shock, her breathing was obviously much steadier now. The wound on her neck had also coagulated into a red scab. The yin-yang beast Noni was also lying quietly at Chu Hen's feet, closing its eyes to rest. Suddenly, a strong wave of energy came from the front of Shifeng Zi. Chu Hen looked up and stood up. A dazzling array that looked like a wheel appeared in the open space in the middle of the hall. Rays of dazzling array patterns intertwined and connected from head to tail, forming a series of complicated and strange patterns. Then, Shifeng Zi flipped his hand, and an exquisite small bottle appeared in his hand. After undoing the rune restriction on the bottle, a drop of 7-colored spiritual liquid floated out. Traces of soft light surged within the droplet-shaped spiritual liquid. It contained extremely pure and majestic immortal qi, as if the essence was extracted from the divine rainbow after the rain. Shifeng Zi gently held the drop of spiritual liquid in front of him. With a flick of his finger, the spiritual liquid immediately flew towards the center of the talisman array. Buzz, it was like a drop of rain falling into a lake. Circles of gentle ripples spread out in all directions from the center. In an instant, the entire talisman array seemed to be dyed with the color of a divine rainbow. Every formation pattern glowed with a colorful swirl of light in the shape of a gossamer. It was a riot of colors, and the huge ice hall was illuminated by the multicolored light. Shifeng Zi turned around and looked at Chu Hen. We still need something to stabilize the core of the array. Chu Hen understood tacitly. He immediately stepped forward, and his true essence Violet Palace opened. An astonishing wave of qi spread out, and a rich white light flashed, accompanied by a majestic aura of desolation. In an instant, a black stone tablet that exuded a mysterious and ancient power appeared above the main hall. Buzz, buzz! The airflow in the entire palace was faintly trembling. Long Xuan opened her eyes and looked at the scene in front of her with some surprise. Even Noni, who was resting with his eyes closed, looked up curiously. Is this the divine stone of the Great Path? Shifeng Zi murmured softly, his face full of amazement. However, what was even more shocking was that Chu Hen could actually control the power of the divine stone of the Great Path. It was truly admirable. Under Chu Hen's control, the divine stone of the Great Path turned into an ancient stone tablet that was 100 meters tall. The stone tablet gently landed in the center of the talisman array. A powerful circle of black light spread along the surface of the talisman array. The entire talisman array shook uneasily. Then, the interweaving talisman patterns quickly climbed up the surface of the divine stone of the Great Path and intertwined with the dark golden ancient runes. Seeing that there was no rejection between the divine stone of the Great Path and the mystic derivation formation, Shifeng Zi's eyes were even more surprised. He looked at Chu Hen and nodded to himself. To be honest, Shifeng Zi was a little skeptical before. After all, the divine stone of the Great Path was the most ancient divine item. Not many people in the world had even seen it, let alone control its power. Now, the last shred of doubt in his heart disappeared like smoke. Very quickly, the runes of the mystic derivation formation climbed up the surface of the divine stone of the Great Path and surrounded it. Senior. Chu Hen glanced at him. Shifeng Zi nodded solemnly. He clasped his hands together and crossed his fingers. A thick aura of righteousness filled the air. Activate! Hua! A mighty wave of air swept out in all directions. The thick layer of ice covering the ground of the ice hall cracked inch by inch. Countless dazzling beams of light shone from the large runes. Accompanied by a sharp gust of wind, the majestic power of the talisman array operated steadily. A steady stream of power poured into every rune of the talisman array from the divine stone of the Great Path. Thousands of strands of soft light rose into the air and gathered above the divine stone of the Great Path. Then, under Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi's heated gazes, a small mystic derivation formation appeared above. It was overflowing with light, like a divine disk. The small mystic derivation formation floating above the divine stone of the Great Path was like a projection of the large mystic derivation formation below. It floated in the air like a sky platform. At this point, the first two steps were completed. You can take out the divine ice stone now, Shifeng Zi said. Chu Hen nodded slightly. He flipped his palm and waved a white light. Amidst the white light, an icy blue jade stone flew directly toward the small mystic derivation formation above the divine stone of the Great Path. It didn't move. The divine ice stone floated in the center of the formation. Buzz! The intense energy fluctuations caused space to tremble faintly. Streaks of light that looked like vines wrapped around the ice god stone. In an instant, the surface of the talisman array was covered in a layer of white frost. The power is a bit domineering. I don't know if I can withstand it. Shifeng Zi's eyes were filled with worry. Chu Hen didn't answer him. Instead, he turned to look at Long Xuan, who had already stood up. The latter pursed her red lips. Her beautiful eyes didn't waver. There was no need for too much communication. Both of them knew what the other was thinking. Chu Hen sighed softly, then said, "No matter what, I will make sure you're fine." Long Xuan nodded. "Get ready to begin," Chu Hen said. With that, Long Xuan took out the pure source, solidifying pill from the wooden box. Her fair and slender fingers gently held the pill and placed it in her mouth. In the next instant, a ball of holy golden light flowed out of Long Xuan's body. Her snow-white skin also flashed with golden light. Her entire body seemed to be bathed in the divine light. Immediately, Long Xuan stepped into the air. Her graceful figure floated like a spirit goose toward the mystic derivation formation above the divine stone of the Great Path. Under the watchful eyes of Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi, Long Xuan sat down in front of the divine ice stone in the center of the formation. Looking at the flowing light in front of her, the ice blue jade stone that emitted an endless chilly aura, Long Xuan gently reached out her hands and placed them on the divine ice stone. Whoosh! In an instant, a strong white cyclone quickly surged out. At the same time, countless interweaving formation patterns wrapped around Long Xuan's delicate body. She closed her beautiful eyes and sank into a meditative state. The mystic derivation formation below the divine stone of the Great Path immediately activated. Along with a thick wave of air, a chaotic spiral of air currents rose up in the entire ice hall, with the mystic derivation formation acting as the pivot The boundary power of Long Xuanchuang's bloodline quietly connected with the power contained in the divine ice stone. The divine ice stone shone brilliantly. An unparalleled 10,000-year-old ice Xian power continuously flowed into the formation, then flowed through the formation patterns, and finally entered Long Xuanchuang's body. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Every step was exceptionally stable. Feeling the gradual increase in power, Long Xuanchuang, Chu Hen, and Shifeng Zi's brows unconsciously relaxed. "Looks not bad," Shifeng Zi said with a sigh of relief. Even though he had spent his entire life researching various rune techniques and was also proficient in the rune power of various major fields. But for him, upgrading the boundary of his bloodline was a first, especially from a Xian body to a saint body, a high-level upgrade. Therefore, Shifeng Zi did not have much confidence. However, in the next moment, an unexpected situation occurred without any warning. Buzz! With a startled sound, the divine ice stone floating in front of Long Xuanchuang suddenly emitted a strong and uneasy rhythm. Long Xuanchuang's delicate body trembled, and her delicate eyebrows could not help but frown slightly. What was going on? Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi revealed a puzzled expression. Then, the figures, birds, and beasts engraved on the four walls of the ice hall all simultaneously transformed into a series of dazzling lights. Whoosh! It was like a roar of frost. Streaks of illusory white light flashed from each of the patterns, like a mysterious ghost in a blizzard. Dozens of illusory shadows shrouded the sky above the divine ice, stone, and gathered. Balls of majestic whirlwinds gathered in the sky above the main hall. All the illusory shadows merged and immediately transformed into a huge figure, like a dream. The figure's facial features were blurred, and its face seemed to be covered by a veil. It floated above the divine ice stone, indifferently looking at the ground, like a snow demon in a world of ice and snow. Slowly opening its arms, it embraced Long Xuanchuang. In a split second, the speed of the derivation profound assimilation formation increased exponentially. The power that poured into Long Xuanchuang's body instantly became more violent by more than 10 times. The influx of this power had already exceeded the scope of what she could bear. Under the horrified gaze of Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi, a thick layer of ice quickly condensed on Long Xuanchuang's body, and the ice was constantly intensifying. Chapter 1193. Not good. This is the second layer of restriction on the divine ice stone. Shifeng Zi's eyes were wide open. His old face was filled with shock. Wind and frost like swords, ice whirlpools like knives. Thousands of illusory lights and shadows flowed out from the walls of the hall from all directions and gathered above the hall. The two profound derivation formations above and below the divine ice stone emitted a restless energy. Endless cold ice whirlpools filled the air above the divine ice stone. Countless illusory shadows intertwined to form a blurry snow demoness. The snow demoness spread open her arms and embraced the divine ice stone along with Long Xuanchuang. Long Xuanchuang's delicate body lightly trembled. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted and her beautiful face was filled with traces of paleness. In an instant, the aura emitted by the other party immediately weakened. Layers of crystal-clear frost spread out from Long Xuanchuang's fingertips and spread to her entire body at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a blink of an eye, Long Xuanchuang was directly enveloped by a layer of ice. "Why is it like this?" Chu Hen's gaze sank as he asked. Shifeng Zi shook his head. His gaze swept across the huge palace and finally landed on the illusion of the snow demoness in the air. He also frowned and said, "It seems that the master of this place doesn't want us to obtain the power of the divine ice stone so easily." Chu Hen clenched his fists, stopped the profound derivation formation. "No," Shifeng Zi firmly rejected. "Once the profound derivation formation is stopped, the power contained in the divine ice stone will be even more uncontrollable." Shifeng Zi did not continue speaking. "Even so, Even if the profound derivation formation were to continue, the power of the divine ice stone would still continue to flow into Long Xuanchuang's blood. Looking at the current situation, Long Xuanchuang would not be able to hold on for long. It was a dilemma. She could not advance or retreat. Looking at the divine ice stone that was constantly releasing powerful energy, Chu Hen was incomparably anxious in his heart. The layer of ice around Long Xuanchuang was getting thicker and thicker. She was like an exquisite ice sculpture. At the same time, her aura was rapidly weakening. His life force fluctuations were rapidly draining away. Shifeng Zi turned his head away. He could not bear to look at her. Chu Hen clenched his fists tightly. His nails dug deep into his palms, and warm blood flowed out from the gaps between his fingers. Looking at Long Xuanchuang's exquisite and beautiful side profile through the ever-thickening ice, Chu Hen felt as if he was stuck in a quagmire. No matter what, I won't let anything happen to you. Just a moment ago, he had said those words to her. But now, he was in a dangerous situation. The main reason is because the Ice God Stone triggered the second restriction, causing the power to go out of control. Right? Chu Hen's voice was a little hoarse and low. Shifeng Zi gave him a sidelong glance. Chu Hen continued, "What if someone else bears half of the power for her? Don't tell me you want to." Shifeng Zi's expression changed again. "You can't do that. That's ice-type power. Apart from those with the same attribute bloodline, no one else can tolerate it. Moreover, without the protection of the pure source consolidation pill, only death awaits." However, before Shifeng Zi could finish speaking, Chu Hen directly stepped into the air and shot towards Long Xuanchuang like an aurora. "Chu Hen boy!" Shifeng Zi shouted to stop him. "Woo!" Even the yin-yang beast, Noni, let out a low growl. But Chu Hen seemed not to hear it. He directly stepped into the icy whirlwind that enveloped the divine Tao stone. Whoosh! The icy whirlwind was like a roar of frost. Sharp whirlwinds scraped against Chu Hen's body, as sharp as steel blades. Thin and shallow wounds quietly appeared on Chu Hen's face and the back of his hand. But he did not stop at all. He directly stepped into the small derivation profound formation above him. He quickly arrived at the heart of the formation and stood in front of Long Xuanchuang. Looking at the cold and beautiful face that was sealed under the frost, Chu Hen sat in front of her. Then he stretched out his palms and placed his palms on the ice god stone floating in the heart of the formation. "Stop!" Shifeng Zi shouted again. Buzz, as his voice fell, an even more intense energy fluctuation surged from the ice god stone between Chu Hen and Long Xuanchuang. A powerful and piercingly cold white whirlwind swept in all directions. Streaks of brilliant and colorful array patterns immediately climbed up Chu Hen's entire body. Then, the power of the bloodline boundary in Chu Hen's body rapidly circulated, and a strange purple light spread out from his body. At the same time, the majestic power that originated from the ice god stone surged into Chu Hen's body like a terrifying undercurrent at the bottom of a glacier. It was irresistible and extremely cold, without the protection of the pure source solid pill. In an instant, Chu Hen felt as if the major meridians in his body were about to explode. From head to toe, he felt as if he had fallen into an icy cavern. This kind of pain was much more intense than what Long Xuanchuang had experienced. Even so, Chu Hen's hand were still tightly pressed against the ice god stone, not moving even an inch. Chu Hen closed his eyes and did his best to control every bit of power that surged into his body. However, all the blood vessels in Chu Hen's body began to rupture. Streams of blood flowed out and quickly solidified. A thick layer of ice began to form along Chu Hen's arms and spread to his entire body. Soon, it turned into a second sparkling and translucent ice sculpture. Seeing this scene, Shifeng Zi's face was full of helplessness, his old eyes filled with loneliness. Why did he have to do this? Long Xuanchuang was just surprised. No one wanted to see anything happen to her. But Chu Hen was too impulsive. "Sob sob." Noni whimpered softly, his round eyes filled with sadness. Ice and snow roared, and the wind and frost raged. The illusion of the snow banshee appeared in the air, overlooking the entire palace. An endless amount of winter energy was released. The two ice sculptures of Chu Hen and Long Xuan Xuang were constantly covered by ice. Then the two ice sculptures fused into an even bigger ice sculpture. It was like a small ice mountain. The two of them, along with the ice god stone, were imprisoned within. Meow. At this moment, Noni suddenly let out a high-pitched cry. Shifengzi was startled. He raised his head and looked over. He saw Chu Hen, who was covered in dense purple flames, emitting a strange black light once again. Buzz, buzz. Bursts of powerful energy fluctuations spread out, and a dense black light flowed out, quickly transforming into a human-shaped shadow. The shadow continued to rapidly increase in size. Its arms and body became solid and sturdy, forming a huge black shadow behind Chu Hen. The incomparably powerful aura directly shook the illusion of the snow banshee in the air. It was like a demonic god confronting the dreamlike snow banshee. Looking from afar, the snow banshee was behind Long Xuan Xuang, hugging her in her arms. The demonic god was like a guardian god standing behind Chu Hen. The aura emitted by the two figures was unyielding, one cold, the other domineering. This is... Shifengzi's eyes were wide open. His heart was incomparably shocked. Following that, something even more unexpected happened. All of the ice godstone's energy that entered Chu Hen's body actually calmed down, like water filling up a dried-up riverbed, no longer violently repelling it. How could this be? Shifengzi's heart trembled. He was extremely shocked. It's actually compatible. The boundary of the non-ice attribute bloodline was actually compatible with the tyrannical cold energy of the ice godstone. Impossible. This kind of thing was simply impossible. However, the truth was right in front of him. Shifengzi had no choice but to believe it. Shifengzi's gaze was fixed on the black figure of the demonic god behind Chu Hen. His deep old eyes revealed an indescribable, complex expression. Chapter 1194. The huge ice hall was filled with cold air. Waves of cold air flowed in all directions. In the center of the hall, a luxurious and dazzling large glyph formation was spinning rapidly. The profound assimilation formation was derived. The great Tao Divine Stone was used to suppress the heart of the formation. An endless stream of ancient power continued the formation's operation. Above the great Tao Divine Stone, there was a small glyph parallel to the ground. Above the glyph formation, the tens of meters tall ice was like a small iceberg, sealing Chu Hen and Long Xuan Xuang within it. The two sat facing each other in the ice. The ice divine stone floating in front of them flashed with a soft, icy blue light. On the other hand, the image of a demoness that was suffused with a boundless chilly aura and the image of a fiend god that emanated supreme divine might hovered in the sky behind them respectively. The profound assimilation formation acted as the pivot. The boundless divine power from the ice divine stone entered Chu Hen and Long Xuan Xuang's bodies. The two's auras grew at a rapid and steady rate. Shifengzi watched this scene quietly from below. In his eyes, there was still a hint of astonishment that had yet to completely subside. Looking at the layer of ice in the ice vortex, even though the two of them were still sealed in ice, their auras were gradually stabilizing. Long Xuan Xuang's fading life force also became strong again. He had thought that this accident would not be able to stop Long Xuan Xuang's death. But at the critical moment, Chu Hen had pulled her back from the abyss. Compatible with the power of the ice divine stone. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Shifengzi would not have believed what was happening in front of him. He did not have his own ice attribute bloodline as a support. He did not have the protection of the clear source strengthening pill. Any one of these factors was enough to kill Chu Hen on the spot. But at the last moment, there was a turn of events. Is this the power of controlling the great Tao Divine Stone? Shifengzi murmured softly. Apart from the surprise, the shock in Shifengzi's eyes gradually turned into relief, and the worry on his face slowly faded. No wonder his expression did not change when he was trapped in this ice hall. It turned out that he had underestimated Chu Hen from the very beginning. Immediately, Shi Fengzi carried Noni to the inner steps of the ice palace and sat down. Who knows how long we'll have to wait? I hope it won't be too boring. Noni narrowed his eyes and licked the fur on his front paw. Not long after, a soft sobbing sound came from the corner of the hall. Shi Fengzi glanced sideways and saw the little girl from the Beichuan lost clan huddled alone at the foot of the wall, trembling and crying softly. Shi Fengzi was startled. He had forgotten about her. He got up and walked toward the other party. Although Shi Fengzi's face was gentle and kind, the little girl who had been greatly frightened still had a terrified look on her face. She lowered her head, not daring to look up. Shi Fengzi paused for a moment, then retreated. After a while, the little girl stopped crying, but she still lowered her head, placed her hands on her knees, and buried her head in the crook of her arms. She seemed to be muttering about the big white bear from before. At this moment, she faintly felt a furry little paw touch the back of her foot. She raised her head subconsciously, and her clear eyes reflected a delicate and cute black and white kitten. The girl was obviously stunned, as if she was a little surprised. The kitten stretched out its little paw and touched her little toe, then rolled on the ground. Its adorable look made the girl laugh. Obviously, compared to humans, she was more willing to interact with little beasts. Then, the kitten waved its paw, stood up, and rolled on the ground. This made the little girl laugh out loud, and she quickly forgot the sadness from before. "Thank you for making me happy." The girl gently rubbed the kitten's head, then said, "Do you have a name?" "My name is Qingxue. It's called Noni." Hearing the sudden voice, the little girl's heart skipped a beat. Raising her head, she saw Shi Fengzi's kind and gentle face. Noni turned around and walked to Shi Fengzi's side, then squatted by his feet and looked at Qingxue in front of him. It was as if it was telling the other party that the grandpa next to it was not a bad person. Perhaps it was because she was familiar with Noni just now. Qingxue tried not to avoid Shi Fengzi's gaze. "New Noni? Did you give it that name? Are you its owner?" She asked timidly. "I'm not its owner. Its previous owner gave it that name. Then its owner must like it a lot, right?" "No. On the contrary, its previous owner almost killed it." "Ah, why?" Qingxue looked at the other party and Noni in shock. "Because its previous owner was a bad person and it didn't want to listen to bad people, so it almost died. Then its current owner adopted it. And because its current owner is very kind. Noni is also very kind. It just doesn't want you to be too sad." Listening to Shi Fengzi's explanation, Qingxue pursed her lips, looked at Noni, then nodded. "I see. Then is its current owner here, too?" Shi Fengzi shook his head, smiled kindly, and said, "Not yet. If there's a chance, I'll introduce him to you. He's not much older than you. I think the two of you will become good friends." Qingxue's eyes lit up, but then dimmed. "I can't leave the Northern Plains snow region. I have to protect this place." "Protect this place? What about the other Northern Plains lost clan members?" Qingxue shook her head. "After Grandpa died, only Dabai and I were left. Then Dabai also." At this point, Qingxue's eyes turned slightly red again. Shi Fengzi sighed softly in his heart. He couldn't help but feel some sympathy. A 10-year-old child was guarding this wintry land all by himself. It made people's hearts ache for him. He thought of the time in Ice City. "I'm sorry, Grandpa." Qingxue wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, then asked, "Grandpa, what do you do?" Shi Fengzi was a little touched. Then he said with a smile, "I'm a pattern caster." "Pattern caster?" "I heard from Grandpa that pattern caster is a very noble and very powerful kind of person." Shi Fengzi hesitated for a moment. Then he clenched his fist, and a dozen or so beautiful runes flowed out from his fingertips. The runes intertwined and circled around each other before transforming into a ball of white light. The ball of light gradually transformed into the shape of a white bear. "Dabai," Qingxue called. Buzz, waves of strange energy waves spread out, and the white bear transformed into the illusory images of eagles, lions, tigers, and so on. Qingxue exclaimed repeatedly, "So powerful." Shi Fengzi clenched his fist, and the light in his palm shattered into thousands of pieces and dissipated into the air. Then he asked, Do you want to learn? Qingxue, who was completely attracted by the magical changes in front of her, nodded without hesitation. Okay then, I'll teach you from the most basic. Maybe it was because of sympathy, or maybe it was because of the boring waiting time. Shifeng actually began to explain the most basic attributes of the symbols, the definition of pattern caster, and what Reiki energy was. Qingxue also seemed to have let down her guard, no longer afraid of Shifeng, and listened attentively. As a result, Yin-Yang Beast Noni was a little bored. It looked at Shifeng and Qingxue, then turned to look at Chu Hin and Long Xuan, who were above the Great Tao Divine Stone. After circling around twice, it actually walked toward the center of the hall. Noni slowly walked to the center of the hall. Then it actually walked to the edge of the profound derivation array, then lay down beside the talisman array and curled up into a ball. At the same time, a black and white light pattern surged out of its body. Buzz, buzz. A strange energy wave came from behind. Shifeng suddenly turned around and couldn't help but squint at the scene in front of him. A wisp of yin and yang energy actually separated from the Great Tao Divine Stone in the center of the profound derivation array. In the stable operation of the talisman array, that wisp of energy was like a river in a vast ocean. The yin and yang energy diverged along the light pattern at the edge of the talisman array and slowly flowed into Noni's body. Shifeng was startled and couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 1195. Snow and ice danced in the air. Time passed by, and nothing happened. As the days passed, the world inside the ice temple seemed to be isolated from the outside world. In the blink of an eye, almost a year had passed. With the help of the Great Tao Divine Stone's divine power, the derivation profound assimilation formation was still operating smoothly. Above the Great Tao Divine Stone, Chu Hin and Long Xuan were still sealed in a thick layer of ice. Shifeng stood under the talisman formation and looked at the two people above him. It's almost been a year. I thought it would be a little boring, but it doesn't seem so. Grandpa Master, I can control the fire runes now. At this moment, a clear and sweet voice came from behind. Shifeng turned around and looked. His eyes were filled with kindness and gentleness. Qingshue's small hands were holding a ball of scorching crimson flame, while a few runes were circling around her other hand. The runes were fusing in her palm, and with a sizzling sound, the runes rotated rapidly before condensing into a small wind blade and the whirlwind rune. Qingshue's eyes were shining. With one hand holding the flame and the other holding the whirlwind, she waved at Shifeng and said to the yin-yang beast that was lying not far away, "Noni, I succeeded, didn't I, meow?" Noni called out softly in response. In the past year, Shifeng had taken on the role of Qingshue's master. From the most basic low-level runes to helping open her Naiwan palace and condense the Tao seed, Shifeng did everything very carefully. It was as if he was teaching from a blank piece of paper. In less than a year, not only did Qingxue successfully upgrade the Tao seed to the street tree, but she also displayed an extraordinary talent in runes. This was definitely out of Shifeng's expectation. Previously, he was just pitying the child. Plus, he wanted to kill some time. He did not expect her talent in runes to be far beyond his imagination. Later on, Shifeng's thoughts also gradually changed. He started to let Qingxue address him as master and started to teach her the art of runes. Day after day, month after month, Shifeng had unconsciously taken him as his own personal disciple. "Little Xue, you've improved a little again." Shifeng revealed a benevolent smile and immediately walked in front of him. "Now you're a beginner rune artist. Beginner pattern maker? Me? Grandpa Shifu, what kind of tattoo artist are you?" "Zong stage," Shifeng replied. Although Qingxue did not know the difference between the primary level and the zone level, in her eyes, Shifeng was the most outstanding person. "Grandpa Master, can I also become a zone level room master in the future?" she asked curiously. "No." Shifeng shook his head in denial, and then said with incomparable determination, "You will become a more powerful engraving master than a zone stage. stronger than a zone master? What's that? A level that even I can't reach. If even Grandpa Master can't reach it, then it's even more impossible for me. Shifengzi laughed loudly and patted her head. Of course you can. I'll help you reach that level. And I'll do my best. Qingxue nodded vigorously. She was so obedient that it made people want to love her. Seeing such a sensible child, Shifengzi's eyes surged with some comfort. In reality, as he grew older, Shifengzi also knew that his potential was gradually being exhausted. If he had not obtained the immortal rune spirit tree in the ancient desolate heaven domain, it would have been very difficult for him to become a zone-level rune master. Although his understanding of runes far surpassed other zone-level rune masters of the same level, there was not much room for improvement in the realm. After studying the art of runes for his entire life, Shifengzi was eager to impart what he had learned to others. He turned around and looked at the young figure sealed in ice above the godstone of the great Tao. That young man was originally someone that he liked. However, as they got to know each other better, Shifengzi gradually understood that he was not qualified to be Chu Hen's master. The strength of the other party was far beyond Shifengzi's imagination, even if it was only in the field of runes. Their relationship was just that of a teacher and a friend. Moreover, it was more inclined towards the latter. Therefore, Shifengzi had never revealed his true thoughts to anyone. Qingshue's appearance brought quite a surprise to Shifengzi. She, who had never come into contact with runes, was as clean as a piece of white paper and as intelligent as a pearl. Moreover, she was only 12 or 13 years old. Shifengzi was very confident that under his guidance, Qingshue's future achievements would definitely surpass his. Therefore, the past year was not boring at all. Buzz buzz. Suddenly, at this moment, a slight tremor of the earth suddenly spread out. What's going on? Shifengzi was shocked. Qingxue also revealed an uneasy expression. Grandpa Master, is someone here again? Shifengzi did not answer, but looked around with a serious expression. The light patterns on the walls of the ice palace flickered, emitting bursts of strong energy waves. At this moment, the impregnable restriction was actually touched. Buzz buzz. The tremor became more and more intense, and the entire palace was shaking. Inyang Beast Noni also stood up, its vertical cat eyes staring at the sky above the palace. Woo! It roared in a low voice. Kacha! In the next moment, the giant icicle standing in the middle of the palace started to crack. At the same time, the airflow in the entire palace became restless and surged wantonly. Boom! An incomparably heavy sound suddenly exploded above everyone's head. Immediately after, the ice palace shook violently, and the surrounding walls cracked rapidly. Accompanied by the rumbling of wind and thunder, the roof of the palace suddenly exploded, and huge icicles and bricks fell down one after another. An earth-shattering hurricane rushed in like a wild current. What? Looking at the broken top of the palace, Shifengzi's expression changed. Like the undercurrent of the deep sea, the cold hurricane howled and filled the huge ice palace. The majestic ice pillars collapsed with a loud rumble. In the sky above the ice palace, wind and thunder raged, covering the sky and covering the earth. Under Shifengzi's shocked gaze, a terrifying, majestic hurricane whirlpool stirred up the heaven and earth, tearing the sky apart. Thunderstorm, nebula whirlpool. Countless violent black lightning flashed like lightning dragons, emitting the power to destroy the heaven and earth. This is... Shifengzi's eyes widened, and his voice trembled as he spat out two words. Divine tribulation. Divine tribulation. Kacha. At the same time, the layer of ice where Long Xuan was quietly cracked. Chapter 1196. Divine Tribulation. Beichuan Ice Palace, which had been silent for a year, was now facing the terrifying Divine Tribulation with a violent aura. Thunder roared in the sky above the ice palace, and the sky was about to crack. Rolling thunderstorms instantly enveloped the entire huge palace. Boom! The thick layer of ice that enveloped Long Xuan instantly cracked. Accompanied by a vast and powerful aura, countless icy whirlpools rapidly circled around her above her. Thousands of lightning tribulations roared and flashed across the sky. In the center of the thundercloud vortex, where power was rapidly brewing, countless majestic divine thunderbolts rapidly gathered together. Every single bolt of lightning was emitting a terrifying aura. The divine tribulation was about to arrive. Her divine physique was about to be formed. Rumble. Heaven and earth trembled, and the space was about to crack. As fast as lightning, countless cloud tribulations surged like black waves. The enormous nebula was like a huge millstone that blotted out the sky and covered the sun, accompanied by a violent tornado that tore through the sky. Black divine lightning with a destructive aura descended from the sky. Its aura was monstrous, and it was like a meteorite falling from the sky. Endless destructive aura enveloped them, and Shifengzi, Qingxue, and Noni could not stand steadily. They felt as if they were shouldering the pressure of a mountain. Whoosh! A piercingly cold whirlpool spread out, and Long Xuanxuang opened her eyes. Her eyes that were as bright as the moon were surging with a frosty aura. An extremely cold and arrogant aura was emitted. Long Xuanxuang moved, and she actually flew towards the descending divine tribulation. The high-speed spinning ice whirlpool enveloped her like a protective frost armor. An extremely shocking bloodline boundary power erupted, and a formless and powerful aura shot into the sky. Boom! Bang! In an instant, the terrifying lightning tribulations that pierced through the sky exploded one after another, turning into blossoming lightning fireworks that lit up the sky. A heavy and violent shockwave swept out in all directions. The walls around the palace cracked inch by inch, and the buildings and stone pillars collapsed. The entire palace was on the verge of collapse. Shifengzi narrowed his eyes and clasped his palms together. Reiki energy surged out. Immortal tree barrier. Kacha, along with the sound of his voice, the ground at the edge of the hall immediately cracked open, and crystal-clear trees quickly extended out from the ground. The sturdy branches intertwined with each other like dragons. In the blink of an eye, it had grown into a towering tree that was over 100 meters tall. The towering trees acted as collapsed pillars, supporting the crumbling walls of the palace and preventing it from collapsing. However, shortly after, a thunderous sound came from the chaotic sky again. Shifengzi's heart skipped a beat. He saw that the incomparably chaotic thunderstorm was actually brewing up an incomparably huge lightning tribulation. 2 divine tribulations? Shifengzi couldn't help but clench his fists tightly, and there was surprise in his eyes. As far as he knew, there was only one divine tribulation for a profound body to become a divine body. It was very rare for 2 divine tribulations to occur. This could only happen if the bloodline boundary was strong to a certain extent. Rumble. The deafening sound caused one's blood to boil and one's mind to tremble. The huge black lightning that pierced through the 9 heavens was like a huge dragon that swooped down. Long Xuanxuang was below it, and she was as small as a butterfly in a storm. Even if it was 1,000th of its power, it would be enough to make her die in an instant. However, Long Xuanxuang didn't have the slightest bit of fear. Her eyes were like autumn water, and her hair was like black silk. There were faint ripples in her gentle eyes. Her long dress danced in the air, and her sleeves fluttered. An extremely powerful aura leaked out. In an instant, a white shadow that emitted a dreamy aura appeared in the sky behind her. The cold aura of winter filled the sky, and the white shadow was like a snow-wind demoness with a veil covering her face. It slowly opened its arms and embraced Long Xuanxuang. Clang! The black lightning that tore the sky and split the earth struck down with the power of a shocking dragon that could destroy everything. The monstrous power that could destroy heaven and earth shook the entire place. Bang! A violent turbulence surged in the sky above the ice temple. Endless lightning exploded in the sky, and an incomparably huge lightning flower bloomed like a lightning lotus. The earth-shattering shock wave caused the entire sky above the ice temple to sink into an unprecedented chaos. The space was distorted, as if it could split open at any time. In the center of the power of the lightning, Long Xuan was like a beautiful and refined snow lotus, noble and elegant. The snow, wind, demoness, white shadow protected him under her body, withstanding the violent impact of the black lightning tribulation. Seeing this scene, Shi Fengzi let out a sigh of relief. His heart that was hanging in the air couldn't help but relax. Rumble. The violent nebula vortex that enveloped the sky above the ice temple gradually stabilized. Following that, tens of thousands of golden lights poured down from the dense layers of clouds, like the first rays of dawn. Enveloping Long Xuan's body, she seemed to be bathing in the divine golden light, emitting an extraordinary holy aura. At the same time, the boundless cold ice vortex that filled the surroundings revolved around Long Xuan's body. Then, the ice vortex rapidly condensed, turning into strands of white light that flowed towards the center of her eyebrows. Her beautiful long hair fluttered in the wind, and her eyes were clear and bright. The strands of white light converged between Long Xuan's eyebrows, turning into a bright snowflake pattern. It was sparkling and resplendent like a star. Ancient, eternal realm. Feeling the powerful aura from Long Xuan, Shi Fengzi nodded and muttered. Such an aura had most likely reached the 6th level of the ancient eternal realm. Looking at the snowflake spirit pattern between Long Xuan's eyebrows, Qingxue couldn't help but say in a low voice, "It seems to be the symbol of Lord Ice Empress." Ice Empress? Shi Fengzi was inwardly surprised. But on second thought, the Ice God Stone was a supreme divine object refined by Ice Empress with the power of the 10,000 years of cold winter in the north. Long Xuan had used the Ice God Stone as the cornerstone to evolve the boundary of her bloodline, which was equivalent to indirectly obtaining the power of Ice Empress inheritance. In Qingxue's eyes, it was naturally somewhat familiar and similar. The powerful aura gradually converged, and the light pattern between Long Xuan's eyebrows also concealed. She first turned around to look at Chu Hen, who was still sealed in the layer of ice, and a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. Then, she flew down and landed on the ground. "Senior West Wind." Shi Fengzi nodded slightly. "You've finally succeeded. Congratulations." A glimmer of light flashed in Long Xuan's eyes, and she immediately asked, "Why is Chu Hen also up there?" Shi Fengzi narrowed his old eyes, sighed softly, and nodded, "Because there's a problem." Immediately, Shi Fengzi recounted the accident that happened before, as well as the cause and effect of Chu Hen disregarding the obstruction to enter the formation. After listening, Long Xuan couldn't help but feel touched. She clenched her jade-like hands, a pair of beautiful eyes filled with complex emotions, as she looked at the young figure sealed in the ice. She didn't expect Chu Hen to take such a big risk for her. "Why hasn't he woken up yet?" Long Xuan asked. Shi Fengzi shook his head in confusion. "I don't know either." He also didn't know anything about Chu Hen's condition now. And at this moment, a strange power began to quietly overflow from the top of the great Tao Divine Stone. The two were startled and looked up, only to see a series of cracks rapidly appearing on the ice around Chu Hen. The power became clearer, the waves more intense, and a demonic purple light rose. Boom! With a loud explosion, the sky was filled with ice crystal shards like a tide surging in all directions. In an instant, a vast aura, even stronger than before, spread out. Endless purple light stacked up like a tide. Bang, bang, bang. All of the towering trees that Shi Fengzi had condensed exploded at the same time. On the ground, incomparably deep cracks rapidly extended out of the walls. The huge ice palace shook unsteadily, and all sorts of buildings and ice pillars collapsed to the ground. Like an ancient monster that had broken free of its cage, or a flood that had broken through a dam. He was like a primordial undercurrent. A howling purple light shot up from Chu Hen's body into the sky. Zung! A strong spatial rhythm was released, and Chu Hen's eyes suddenly opened. His incomparably bewitching purple pupils shone with brilliance, and the 5 black dots slowly rotated. In the next instant, one of the dots vibrated violently and split into 2. In an instant, 6 black dots appeared in the depths of Chu Hen's pupils. Hum! There seemed to be a heavy trembling sound between heaven and earth, evil and unparalleled, like the supreme aura of a demon god, shaking heaven and earth. Inside Chu Hen's body, there seemed to be a ferocious ancient beast roaring. 6-star demon eyes awakened. Chapter 1197. 6-star demon eyes awakened. Within the purple mansion world of true essence, the stars moved, and the universe of all things. An earth-shattering aura swept through the 9 heavens. The vast and boundless true inner force surged like the sea. In the sky above, the true inner force that flowed like a river, the originally transparent purple mansion, Saint Soul, seemed to be much more solid than before. The aura it released was also stronger and more powerful. At this moment, the illusory Saint Soul slowly opened its eyes. Its deep eyes were as vast as the sea of stars. The aura emitted from every inch of his body was exactly the same as Chu Hen's original body. Then, the Saint Soul phantom lifted its gaze and looked into the sky. There, a pair of huge purple eyes of the demon god floated in the sky, looking down on all things. The 5 dots in the depths of the eyes trembled violently and released a shocking demonic aura. As it slowly rotated, the 5 dots turned into 6. The 6-star demon eyes looked down at the heavens. Screech! Soon after, a loud phoenix cry that pierced through the 9 heavens resounded through the world. The rainbow divine vermilion bird, who was bound by a dozen or so purple chains, seemed to have been reborn. Boundless purple demonic flames revolve around it as it spread its colorful wings and broke free from its chains before flying straight into the heavens. I'm back. Whoosh! The sky was dyed by the all-encompassing multicolored light, and the splendid holy light sprinkled down like a divine rainbow after the rain. Chu Hen looked up at the other party with the help of his Saint Soul body, and his illusory face couldn't help but reveal a comforting smile. You've finally awakened. Thinking back to the battle at the Thunder Saint Palace, the scene was still vivid in his mind. The slender figure in the 7-color divine light was like a dream. She looked back hastily for a short moment, as if she had seen it for tens of thousands of years at that time. The slender and gentle figure turned around and looked at Chu Hen, who had a pair of bloodshot eyes and was about to become a demon. From the side of her beautiful face to the bright starry eyes that flowed over, it was like a graceful swan in the dark night. There was a kind of indescribable, breathtaking beauty. He was caught off guard. Remember, don't use that power again. I hope you can amaze me the next time we meet. Her red lips parted slightly, and her voice was completely different from her usual hoarse and deep voice. Instead, it was as graceful as glass. The moment their eyes met, Chu Hen instantly woke up and broke free from Qi Tianling's control. Sacred Wing, Heavenly Flame Sparrow. After sleeping for 2 years, he had finally awakened. Screech! Wherever the phoenix danced in the 9 heavens, the auspicious clouds burned like divine fire. The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow looked down at the vast primordial Qi torrent and at Chu Hen's purple mansion Saint Soul. Level 7 Eternal Realm. You really didn't disappoint me. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up as he chuckled. Didn't you say that when we meet again, I hope to amaze you? The two of them were like old friends who had not seen each other for a long time. It was a little emotional. He was also a little touched. Looks like a lot of things happened while I was asleep. The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow said. Chu Hen nodded. I've always had a lot of things to do. If you're interested, I can tell you slowly. But before that, I'm afraid you have to tell me your name. Your name? The other party laughed. Her voice was like a silver bell. Li. Qingli, Mo Qingli. The other party replied. Chu Hen smiled. Nice to meet you. In the ice palace, the huge palace was already in a mess. The icicles had collapsed, the walls had collapsed, and the ground was split open with long, narrow, and rugged faults. The air was filled with a chaotic, powerful, and terrifying aura. Shifeng Zi, Long Xuan, and Qingshu all looked at the young figure floating above the great Tao Godstone in shock. A thick demonic purple light rose around his body like flames. Immediately after, Chu Hen's eyes slowly opened. After a burst of violent energy trembling, all of the chaotic aura that pervaded the world quickly converged, like a whale sucking in water. Hua. An extraordinary aura flowed out. Chu Hen looked at the people below and couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile. Then his body moved and he flew down. An invisible aura quietly dispersed. Seeing that the aura released by Chu Hen was far stronger than before, Shifeng Zi's eyes were filled with surprise. Long Xuan hurriedly walked up and asked anxiously, "How are you? Are you injured?" "Injured?" Chu Hen smiled and shook his head. "I'm fine." Feeling the powerful aura from Long Xuan, Chu Hen's brows were filled with excitement. "Did you succeed?" "Yes." Long Xuan nodded. "What grade of sacred physique?" "I'm not sure yet." After saying that, Long Xuan's mind moved, and a snowflake-shaped spiritual tattoo flashed between her brows. Then a cold ice vortex started to circulate around everyone. The cold ice vortex was like a whirlpool formed by roaring ice and frost. The extremely cold airflow caused everyone's blood to freeze. Feeling this powerful bloodline boundary power, Chu Hen's eyes could not help but light up. This power is definitely not weaker than a high-grade sacred physique. Long Xuan retracted her aura, and her clear eyes flashed. Shifeng Zi, who was at the side, also expressed his surprise. Meow. Noni, the yin-yang beast, also chimed in, as if in agreement. Chu Hen glanced sideways and looked at him in surprise. Noni's power seems to have increased a lot too. You don't say. Shifeng Zi laughed and pointed at Noni. This stupid cat has been running to the edge of the profound derivation formation from time to time in the past year to borrow the power of the great Tao Divine Stone. It's hard not to improve. Noni had the ability to control the power of yin and yang. The great Tao Divine Stone also contained a huge amount of yin and yang power. Therefore, it could absorb it. After hearing Shifeng Zi's words, Chu Hen couldn't help but laugh. Then, he looked at Long Xuan. "It's been a year. Senior Shifeng, you've worked hard during this period. It's not hard on me at all." Shifeng Zi waved his hand and said happily, "I've been very happy this year, haha." "Happy?" The two were startled. Then, they looked at Qingshu, who was standing beside Shifeng Zi. When he felt the slight ripple of spiritual energy emitted from Qingshu's body, Chu Hen immediately understood what was going on. "It's about time, let's go," Shifeng Zi said. Chu Hen nodded, then turned to look at the black stone tablet in the center of the profound derivation formation. "I'll go get the great Tao Divine Stone. And the Ice Divine Stone, second sister, you go get it." The Ice Divine Stone was a supreme divine item made by the Ice Monarch. It contained the power of 10,000 years of winter. For Long Xuan, who had an ice attribute bloodline, it could be said to be a tailor-made treasure. Long Xuan didn't refuse. Then, she and Chu Hen put the Ice Divine Stone and the Great Tao Divine Stone into their bags. Then, they left the ice hall and returned to the sky above the northern snowy region. The northern snowy region, which used to be windy and snowy, had a rare sunny day. The gentle sunlight shone on the white northern snowy region, forming a unique and beautiful scenery. Looking at this familiar environment, Qingshu couldn't help but think of her only companion, Dabai. Roar. But at this moment, a low roar came from afar. Following that, a snow-white violent bear actually ran towards them from the ice field, leaving a row of neat footprints on the snowy ground. "Dabai?" Qingshu's eyes lit up. She ran forward in surprise and joy. "Dabai, you're still alive. That's great. Whoosh." The white bear breathed out water vapor from its nose and mouth. Its huge head was on the ground, allowing Qingxue to grab its fur. Seeing this, Long Xuan turned to look at Chu Hen beside her. Previously, Luo Lu's sword from the Imperial Sword Sect was 100% certain to take the bear's life. However, at the last moment, Chu Hen, who was hiding in the dark, used a gentle force to push the white bear away from its position. As a result, Luo Lu's sword missed the white bear's vital points. This was also why Luo Lu had angrily reprimanded Chu Daring twice for meddling in his business. Dabai, it's great that you're not dead. Qingxue jumped up and down happily. Then, she turned to look at Shifeng Zi and said apologetically, I'm sorry, Grandpa Master. I can't leave the northern snowy region with you. I have to stay and accompany Dabai. Shifeng Zi was startled. A hint of loneliness welled up in his old eyes. But he replied with a smile, Okay. However, Dabai raised his head and a low voice came from his throat. Qingxue was stunned and looked at him in confusion. Dabai, what did you say? You want me to go with them? As soon as he said that, everyone present was stunned. Dabai nodded in response. Why? Isn't it better for us to stay here? Qingxue asked. Dabai spoke softly in beast language that only Qingxue could understand. His brown eyes were filled with determination. Shifeng Zi's expression was clearly uneasy. He couldn't help but ask, what did he say? Qingxue turned around, her eyes red. Dabai wants me to leave the northern snowy region with you. He said this is not a place for me to stay. A hint of warmth appeared in Shifeng Zi's eyes. He's right. This is indeed not a place for you to stay. Now that the Ice Palace has reappeared, there are no more secrets in the northern snowy region. There's no need for you to stand guard here. Leave with us today and come back to see your friends later. Phew. Dabai seemed to agree with Shifeng Zi's words and agreed softly. Qingxue bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. After an extremely difficult moment of hesitation, she slowly retreated back to Shifeng Zi's side. Dabai, you must wait for me to come back. Don't let the bad guys hurt you again. The white bear moaned softly as a response. Chu Hen also patted Qingxue's shoulder. Don't worry, no one will come to the northern snowy region in the future. Dabai will be very safe. Qingxue wiped the tears from her eyes, and a pure smile appeared on her face. In the northern snowy region, the huge white bear stood proudly on the summit of a snowy mountain and roared into the sky. It gazed at Chu Hen, who was getting further and further away. Shifeng Zi and the others disappeared into the snowy region. They left Ice City and announced the conclusion of their trip to the northern snowy region. Although there were a few accidents that occurred in the span of over a year, this trip had finally come to a successful conclusion. Long Xuan had successfully evolved to the Holy Body bloodline limit. Her cultivation base had also advanced by leaps and bounds to the 6th stage of the Eternal Realm. The biggest surprise was still Chu Hen. Due to a freak combination of factors, his bloodline had advanced again, and his cultivation base had also advanced by 4 stages, reaching the 7th stage of the Eternal Realm. This full stop also meant that a new prologue was about to begin. After a year, Chu Hen embarked on his journey back to the martial sect. Chapter 1198. Wuzong. The mountain range was precipitous and majestic. The beautiful mountain range was filled with extremely dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Tianwu Peak. Today, the Lingxiao platform square could be said to be very lively. People came and went, and the bustling crowd gathered on the square. The momentum was especially great. The sect war has finally arrived. This time, I, Long Xiaoyan, will definitely show my skills and shine. Stop bragging. With your standard, I'm afraid you won't even be able to pass the first round. Screw you. What if I pass the first round? Don't brag. The rules have been changed this time. It is said that the top 32 will be decided in the first round. With your mediocre skills, you don't even have the qualifications to stand on the stage. That's right. I've also heard that the rules have changed this time. It seems to be an elimination mode similar to the battle of a cornered beast. Only those who complete the advancement will enter the arena competition. Oh my God, this is so difficult. A battle between sects. It was the martial ancestors' greatest sacred scripture. It was also a grand event that every Wuzong disciple looked forward to the most. This was the biggest test for all the disciples. It was also a pinnacle battle that would decide whether the other party was a dragon or a snake. It could be seen that the majority of the disciples on Tianwu Peak were very excited. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation. Even for some disciples who didn't plan to participate in the competition, it was still something that they looked forward to. In the sect battle, everyone could personally witness the exciting battles between the disciples of the 4 peak academies and the intense battles between the top geniuses on the Heaven Martial ranking. Even though they were just spectators, they still felt extremely excited. What do you guys think? Who will be the champion this time? Hey, do you even need to think about it? Of course it's Qiu Xingyi, Senior Qiu. Wah! When Qiu Xingyi's name came out, the crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Everyone couldn't help but look at the Heaven Martial stele in the center of the high heaven platform. On the stone stele, the name Qiu Xingyi was like a bright moon that towered above the 2 geniuses, Wang Li and Pei Yi, and it stood at the top of the list. However, a certain voice soon came from the crowd. As far as I know, Senior Brother Qiu doesn't plan to participate in the sect battle this year. His words stirred up 1,000 ripples, and the crowd exclaimed once again, "No way! Senior Brother Qiu is going to be absent again?" He didn't participate in the last sect battle either. That's right. Last time, Senior Brother Qiu took part in the sect battle. He directly suppressed everyone and took first place. This way, Senior Brother Qiu has been absent from the sect battle for 2 consecutive years. If that's the case, then I think Senior Brother Wang Li, who won last year, will be the champion again. I also think it's Senior Brother Wang Li. His 1,000 illusions sacred body bloodline limit is too strong, and he also has this South Spirit art. Other than Senior Brother Qiu, no one is his match. You guys from the South Spirit Peak Academy can keep on boasting. Are you looking down on Senior Brother Pei Yi of the West Dome Peak Academy? That's right. To be honest, Senior Brother Pei Yi's Kylan Holy Body bloodline boundary can be called the King of Destruction. This year, Senior Brother Pei Yi will definitely aim for the first place. Haha, what a joke. Your West Dome Peak Academy really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Don't you remember how Pei Yi lost to Senior Brother Wang Li last time? Of course I remember. That was just Senior Brother Pei Yi's mistake. A loss is a loss. Don't find excuses. The Heaven Martial ranking can't be wrong. 3rd place is 3rd place. How can he win against 2nd place? Then your South Spirit Peak Academy, just wait and see. A disagreement. The disciples of the various peak academies immediately started a fierce war of words on the Heaven Martial Peak Plaza. Everyone was arguing for this year's most popular contestant. Each of them argued until their faces were red, and they were just short of fighting. At the edge of the Ling Shao platform plaza, a thin figure stood there quietly, seemingly out of place with the noisy atmosphere. It's already been more than a year. She sighed softly, her fair little hand tightly grasping a crystal bead the size of a longan. The crystal bead was crystal clear, and its color was transparent. In the center of it, the words Yi Yao could be clearly seen. That guy isn't back yet. Looks like he's going to miss the sect war. Wu Mian walked over from the back, and as he spoke, he played with the crystal bead in his hand. Inside the crystal bead, his name was also written. Yi Yao shook her head helplessly. When Chu Hen and Long Xuan left the martial sect, she was still in seclusion. From the letters left behind by Wu Mian and Long Xuan, she found out that they had gone to the Northern Plains snow region. It had already been more than a year, and they had yet to return. I wonder if they can come back? Wu Mian muttered in his heart. Although Wu Mian did not know much about the Northern Plains snow region, he had a rough idea of the situation there. Many people would go there to search for the inheritance treasures left behind by the Ice Empress. Some would return empty-handed, while others would be buried in the snow region forever. Although Wu Mian did not wish for anything to happen to Chu Hen, it had already been so long, it was inevitable that people would overthink it. Junior Sister Yi Yao, why are you standing here in a sullen mood? Just at this moment, a playful voice sounded from behind. Yao and Wu Mian instinctively turned to look, only to see a few young figures with arrogant auras walking towards them. The person in the lead was dressed in luxurious brocade robes, looking like a noble. However, his playful expression gave off a frivolous feeling. Lu Chun. Wu Mian frowned slightly. Lu Chun, a genius of Dongxian Peak. He was ranked 13th on the Heaven Martial leaderboard. Although he was a good-for-nothing, he was also a genius through and through. In the past year, as Yao's strength grew and her reputation increased, she was gradually recognized by the various peak schools. With the power of the sacred body of Tai Chi and her outstanding looks, Yao had no lack of suitors in the sect. However, Yao rejected all of them. Lu Chun was one of those rejected. As a proud person and a monster on the Heaven Martial leaderboard, Lu Chun, who felt that he had lost face, would come upon him every few days. However, Yao was unwilling to pay any attention to him. She turned around and left. Lu Chun smiled frivolously. Still waiting for that, brother, Chu Hen of yours? I'm afraid that coward won't be coming back. Hearing him insult Chu Hen, Yao frowned and could not help but clench her fists. You can insult me, but please don't insult him. Insult? Ha! Lu Chun laughed and said, Is this an insult? I'm telling the truth. Who doesn't know that he ran away in the middle of the night after offending Pei Yi? I thought he had some ability since he passed the rookie challenge, but I didn't expect him to run away so quickly. If this isn't coward, what is? Yao blushed, her almond-shaped eyes widening. A year ago, she had heard about the conflict between Chu Hen and Pei Yi in the back mountains of the sect. Later on, because of Chu Hen's sudden departure, all the disciples of the sect thought that Chu Hen had been scared away by Pei Yi. Although she knew that was not the truth, the mockery of the people around her still made her furious. Wu Mian shook his head and sighed. To be honest, sometimes, even he felt that going to Beichuan Ice region was just an excuse for Chu Hen. After all, who was Pei Yi? In terms of ruthlessness and cruelty, even Xiu Xingyi and Wang Li could not compare to him. Therefore, it was impossible for him to escape. I say, junior sister Yao, staying in Beichun Peak Academy is too much for you. Why don't you come to my Dongxian Peak Academy? Lu Chun smiled calmly. I don't want to talk to you. I won't leave Beichun Peak Academy. Brother Chu Hen is not a coward either. Please stay away from me, Yao said coldly. Ha ha. Lu Chun laughed frivolously. What a joke. Let me ask the entire sect, who doesn't know that Chu Hen is a cowardly rat? Why do you have to lie to yourself? Cowardly rat. Lu Chun said these 4 words especially loudly. Everyone on Tianwu Peak Square was instantly attracted over. Seeing the pairs of eyes that swept over, Yao was angry and annoyed. She wanted to turn around and leave, but she could not stand Lu Chun's repeated insults to Chu Hen. Her eyes turned cold as she shouted coldly. I said, You're not allowed to insult him anymore. What? Junior sister Yao wants to fight me? Sure. I like to see how much Beichun Peak's sealed personal disciple has improved in the past year. With that, a powerful aura was released from Lu Chun's body. Seeing this, Wu Mian immediately panicked. He hurriedly stepped forward to dissuade. Senior brother Lu Chun, please. However, before Wu Mian could finish his words, a piercingly cold wind suddenly swept across the entire Tianwu Peak Square, and a majestic aura that was comparable to a torrent surged over. The dust on the ground dispersed. The hearts of everyone present suddenly jolted. In the next moment, there was a crushing aura coming from Lu Chun's position. An unparalleled aura filled the sky, setting off a sky full of frost and dust. The whirlwind was like a blade, and the cold current poured down. In an instant, 2 young figures with peerless aura appeared on Lingshao Platform Square like phantoms. Who are you calling a cowardly rat? An indifferent voice exuded the unique prestige of a king. Bang! A dull explosion sounded. Lu Chun directly knelt on both knees, and the bricks under his knees shattered inch by inch. The powerful aura released by the other party was instantly suppressed. Chapter 1199. Who did you say is a coward? The air was like a torrent, and the sky was filled with frost. A powerful and invisible aura like a mountain, came crashing down. The instant that indifferent voice was transmitted into everyone's ears, the stone tiles on the ground instantly turned into dust. Under countless shocked gazes, Lu Chun directly knelt on the ground, and the aura that he had released was instantly crushed. Wah! A mighty wave of air spread out in all directions. At this moment, the entire sky Marshall Peak suddenly welcomed an unprecedented silence. Everyone was astonished. Everyone stared at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Lu Chun, that was a genius ranked 13th on the Sky Marshal list. And he actually knelt in front of everyone. What kind of aura was this? Who was it? Then, everyone's gaze swept in the same direction. Accompanied by a powerful aura that made people's hearts palpitate, two young figures, a man and a woman, suddenly appeared on Sky Marshal Peak. The man's aura was unparalleled, and his eyes were like stars. The woman was cold and elegant, and her beauty was peerless. Their appearance was like the bright moon, full of resplendent holy splendor. Big Brother Chu Han. Yao's eyes shone brightly, and she hurriedly ran in front of the two of them. Her expression was extremely joyful, and she was extremely excited. You guys are finally back. Meow. The black and white cat behind her also let out a soft cry. Noni. Yao hurriedly hugged the black and white cat in her arms and used her cheek to rub its head. I missed you so much. The happy Yao formed a sharp contrast with the terrified expressions of the surrounding people. He actually came back? This is Chu Han. If it's not him, who else could it be? But why is the aura so different? Everyone's heart was filled with shock. Especially Lu Chun. Just a moment ago, he was still shamelessly mocking Yao. But in the blink of an eye, he did not even have the qualifications to stand up and speak. You dare to come back? Lu Chun stared fixedly at Chu Han. At the same time, his body trembled as he stood up from the ground. Chu Han's gaze turned cold, and his gaze swept towards the other party like a sharp sword. At the instant he came into contact with Chu Han's gaze, Lu Chun's figure suddenly trembled, and he instantly felt the world spin as if he'd fallen into an abyss. There seemed to be a faint purple glow surging in the other party's deep and dark eyes. Lu Chun felt like he was staring at a demon god, and a shiver that went straight to the depths of his soul surged into his heart. His legs went soft, and he almost fell to the ground again. Bastard, don't play tricks in front of me. You can't scare me. Lu Chun refused to bow his head, just like that under the gazes of the surrounding people. As a genius ranked 13th on the Heaven Marshal roll, he would definitely not tolerate such humiliation. He let out a beast-like roar and charged at Chu Han aggressively. Chu Han's expression slightly darkened, but he did not move at all. When the other party aggressively rushed in front of them, there was a flash of light in the air. Everyone only saw a flash of cold light in front of their eyes, and then there was a muffled bang. A violent purple halo surged in the air, and along with the chaotic wind, a figure was directly sent flying. Boom! Without any deviation, he directly collided with the Heaven Marshal stone tablet on the plaza. The huge stone tablet faintly trembled, and tiny cracks appeared on the stone tablet behind Lu Chun. A large mouthful of blood gushed out from his mouth, and he heavily fell to the ground, unable to get up again. In an instant, everyone in the plaza sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and their faces were filled with deep shock. The few people who came with Lu Chun were also scared to the point that their faces were deathly pale. They did not even dare to go forward to help him. Wu Mian, who was standing behind Yao, fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva. In a year's time, the other party's cultivation had already reached an unfathomable level. The rumor that he was scared away by Pei Yi was self-destructed. Without taking another look at Lu Chun, Chu Han strode toward a stone platform in front of him. There, a few martial ancestor realm disciples were standing in front of a rectangular table. On the table, there was a thick list of names, as well as neatly arranged transparent crystal balls. I sign up for the sect battle. Chu Han slightly raised his gaze and spat out a few words clearly. The martial ancestor realm disciples in charge of the registration were all shocked and even a little dazed. They almost did not come back to their senses. Yes, yes. One of the disciples hurriedly took out a scroll with 2 lines of names written on it and placed it in front of Chu Hen. Please personally sign your name. Chu Hen picked up the brush beside him and wrote Chu Hen under the last person's name. The tip of the brush was steady, but it did not lose its sharpness. Shortly after, another disciple took out a crystal ball, raised his finger, and drew a few brilliant light patterns in the air. Buzz! Streaks of bright light patterns flowed into the crystal ball and then transformed into Chu Hen's name. This is equivalent to a token of participation. The young disciple respectfully presented the crystal ball to Chu Hen with both hands. Chu Hen nodded his head and took it in his palm. Subsequently, Long Xuanxuang also wrote her name on the scroll. She also received a transparent crystal ball with the 3 words Long Xuanxuang. After a simple registration, the 2 of them turned around and left. The few disciples in charge of the registration heaved a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat off their foreheads. Obviously, what happened just now had shocked many people. At this moment, the atmosphere in the square of Tianwu Peak was a little strange. The crowd was whispering and communicating in low voices. He also signed up for the sect battle. Seems like the situation this year is a little complicated. What's complicated about it? He only defeated Lu Chun. If he met Senior Brother Pei Yi, you wouldn't even know how he died. But I feel that he's here for Senior Brother Pei Yi. Forget it. If he's really here for Senior Brother Pei Yi, he's basically walking to Hades. Chu Hen didn't pay much attention to the complicated crowd around him. He said to Long Xuanxuang and Yi Yao, "Let's go." Yi Yao nodded happily. On a mountain on the west side of Tianwu Peak, a few figures with cold eyes looked at Chu Hen and the others who were leaving Tianwu Peak. I didn't expect that damn bastard to actually come back. But it's good that he's back. Shen Hong, your violent divine hammer is still with him. One of them said. Shen Hong frowned, and then looked at another figure standing in front of him with an extraordinary aura. Senior Brother Xiao, this bastard's strength seems to have increased a lot. Xiao Meng's eyes suddenly surged with thick frost. His face was gloomy as he replied coldly. So what? My Xiao Meng is not afraid of him. Shen Hong didn't say anything more, but there was a faint coldness in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 1200. In the residence of Long Xuanxuang and Yi Yao, in a courtyard with elegant scenery. Sister Xuanxuang, have you really evolved into a holy body? Yi Yao's eyes were shining brightly, looking at the other party in surprise. Long Xuanxuang nodded, with a smile on her lips. Amazing. How'd you do it? I've even asked the Peak Master if he could help you evolve your bloodline limit after you come back. He said that it's relatively difficult for you to evolve your body type with the ice attribute. Yi Yao said, when Chu Hen and Long Xuanxuang left the martial sect, although they left a letter to Yi Yao, they only told the other party that they were going to the northern snow region to find a way to upgrade the bloodline boundary for Long Xuanxuang. They did not tell the other party the specific details. When Yi Yao was worried, she also asked the North Star Peak Master Yuan Shang to help pay attention to Long Xuanxuang. But because of the complexity of evolving the bloodline boundary, Yuan Shang did not take this matter too seriously. After all, Long Xuanxuang was not as outstanding as Chu Hen, so it was normal that she did not get the attention of the higher-ups. Long Xuanxuang smiled and said, "It's all the credit of your brother, Chu Hen and Senior West Wind. I just enjoyed the fruits of their labor." Really? Senior West Wind also went. Is he okay? Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly, looked at Long Xuanxuang, and said with a smile, "You don't say. Senior West Wind picked up a personal disciple this time. Don't mention how happy he is." Personal disciple? Yi Yao was a little surprised. Immediately, the two of them told each other everything that had happened in the northern snowy region in full detail. They talked for almost half an hour or so. Chu Hen said goodbye to the two women, and as soon as he went out, he saw a familiar figure standing outside the door, pacing back and forth. This person was none other than Wu Mian. "What are you doing here?" Chu Hen was startled. Seeing Chu Hen come out, Wu Mian hurriedly went up to him and chuckled. "I've been waiting for you here. Wait for me." Why aren't you going in? Wu Mian scratched his head in embarrassment. It's nothing. I'm just a little surprised that you're back. I thought, do you really think I was scared away by Pei Yi? Chu Hen said as he walked. Wu Mian shrugged, tried to resolve the awkwardness. Then he shouted, that string of runes that you asked me to look for, I have a clue. As soon as he said this, Chu Hen, who was walking in front, stopped and turned to look at him. There was a look of anticipation between his brows. Are those runes engraved on a semicircular stone? Wu Mian asked. Chu Hen's pupils trembled slightly. His hands clenched into fists. As expected, the stone that he had obtained was only half of it. There was indeed another half. Where's that stone? Chu Hen asked. Wu Mian spread his hands and looked as if he didn't know. It's gone. Gone? What do you mean? It's like this. That stone was accidentally brought back by an elder of the sect when he went out a few decades ago, because he felt that there might be something unusual about it. He studied it for a long time. And then, Wu Mian's face revealed a hint of disdain. In the end, he found that it was useless. The only special thing was that the stone had extraordinary stability. The runes on it were also very stable. There would be no rejection or backlash between them. At this point, Chu Hen was already 100% sure that the half piece of stone he was talking about was the thing he was looking for. Wu Mian continued. Because of its strong stability, the elders of the sect later placed it in the great formation that created the Reverie Star Realm to strengthen the stability of the Reverie Star Realm. In the Reverie Star Realm? Chu Hen was stunned. Wu Mian nodded and then curled his lips. It was originally peaceful, but just over 10 years ago, that stone mysteriously disappeared. At that time, it even caused a 2-month stagnation in the Reverie Star Realm. I remember this very clearly, but I'm very surprised. Why is the thing you're looking for that? Mysteriously disappeared? Chu Hen could not help but fall into deep thought. There was no reason. Even the elders of the sect could not study it, and only used it as something to assist in the operation of the Reverie Star Realm. What was the use of it for others? Could it be? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes slightly narrowed. He asked calmly, perhaps, not long after that incident, something else happened in the sect? Something else? I don't think so. Wu Mian looked at Chu Hen with a strange expression, then looked at the azure sky. His mind quickly mobilized his memories. Then he suddenly clapped his hands and blurted out, That's right. Old Monkey also disappeared that year. Yes, that's right. Old Monkey went on a mission not long after. In the end, he never returned, and there was no news of him. Hua. It was like a gloomy dark cloud being pushed aside by the warm sunlight. Bright light poured down. In an instant, everything matched up. The origin of everything, in the end, still returned to the old Monkey. In that case, old Monkey's strange disappearance was not a coincidence. He had been studying those mysterious runes. Perhaps it was because he had discovered something. He had stolen that half stone in the Reverie Star Realm and then disappeared mysteriously. Give me your disciple's keepsake. Chu Hen immediately said. Wu Mian's eyes lit up, and he quickly took out the token with the words Beichen engraved on it. That junior brother Chu Hen. Although I didn't help you find that half stone, you can just give me 50 star keys as a token. Just as he finished speaking, a green vertical mark appeared on Wu Mian's token. 100 star keys. Wu Mian's eyes almost popped out. He rubbed his hands back and forth in excitement. Junior brother Chu Hen is really generous. Don't mention this to anyone. Chu Hen said. Understood. Wu Mian could not wait to receive the disciple token. He hugged the token and kissed it twice. So many star keys. Old too, and probably going to rise. It's a pity that the sect war will be held the day after tomorrow. Otherwise, my strength would have increased greatly. Looking at Wu Mian, who was grinning from ear to ear, Chu Hen smiled indifferently and then flew in the direction of Beichen Peak Academy alone. A moment later, Sky Observation Peak. Even though he had been away for more than a year, the cave abode was still clean and tidy without a speck of dust. Yao would come over to clean it whenever she had time. The cool mountain breeze passed through the hall, and one could vaguely hear the sound of water flowing in the deep pool behind the cave abode. Chu Hen stood quietly in front of a stone wall. The stone wall was engraved with strange and complicated secret scriptures. Oldie monkey, what kind of person are you? It only took him 3 days to comprehend the Bachan mantra, one of the martial ancestor sect's 4 great techniques from the Saint Monument. Then he even improved it. He sealed the spirit vein at the bottom of Sky Observation Peak for his own use. More than 10 years ago, he mysteriously disappeared with that half of the mysterious stone. Chu Hen could not help but laugh. He shook his head and sighed softly. If he had not accidentally come to live in the Sky Observation Peak, if he had not accidentally discovered the secret on the wall, it was likely that until now, the world would have thought that the oldie monkey was just an unsociable, opportunistic, and treacherous person. If there's a chance, I'd like to meet you, this arrogant senior. Then, Chu Hen headed toward the deep pool on the south side of Sky Observation Peak. Bang! With a loud sound, the calm pool stirred up a monstrous splash. Chu Hen was like a swordfish shuttling through the deep sea, directly rushing toward the bottom. Not long after, Chu Hen entered the underground river. Following the wide underground river, Chu Hen headed toward the depths of the cave. After just a short while, a deep dragon roar suddenly came from the front. Roar! A deep and resounding voice spread through all the underground tunnels. A wave of supreme majesty that went straight into the depths of his soul assaulted him. Chu Hen's mind unconsciously trembled, as if he had entered a dangerous, forbidden area. Chapter 1201. Roar. A deep dragon roar that went straight to the depths of one's soul reverberated in all directions of the underground river. An incomparably fearsome and majestic aura immediately made one feel as if they had entered a forbidden area of death where ancient beasts were lurking. Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat, and then he moved forward at the fastest speed possible. Hua! The invisible, majestic pressure seemed to come from an ancient, noble emperor. When Chu Hen arrived at the location of the underground spirit vein, a piercingly cold gust of wind surged over. The ferocious and intimidating malevolent dragon bones looked down at Chu Hen with indifference. A layer of illusory golden flame enveloped the skeleton, as if it was an illusory body. Under the golden flame, every bone emitted a luxurious light like colored glass, and the huge eye sockets that were originally empty were burning with 2 balls of red light. Compared to the illusory light from before, the 2 balls of red light were unusually strong and condensed. Chu Hen, who was standing in front of it, had a feeling as if he was looking at a huge, ancient beast. This feeling was especially clear and real. More than a year ago, it was almost impossible to sense the fluctuation of life force, but now it was especially powerful and astonishing. Similarly, from the other party's crimson eyes, Chu Hen also faintly sensed a trace of contempt. A contempt that came from a supreme species, an ancient ferocious spirit. Humph. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled into a sneer. Looks like you've been a little complacent for more than a year. Hua. Before he finished speaking, an incomparably majestic and powerful aura suddenly surged out from Chu Hen's body. Immediately after, the violet palace of true essence opened, and a powerful suction force spread out. Dense white light quickly enveloped the huge dragon skeleton, and its entire body was suffused with a transparent, illusory light. Accompanied by a strong spatial rhythm, the dragon skeleton turned into a white shadow and drilled into Chu Hen's body. However, in the next instant, an unruly and incomparably violent and terrifying power spread out from Chu Hen's body. In an instant, the blood in Chu Hen's body was faintly boiling, and he only felt that the true essence in his Zifu was turning upside down. Obviously, this ancient beast that was revered as an ancient god was no longer willing to be trapped in the body of an ordinary human. He wanted to break free from all restraints. Boom! Bang! Chu Hen's Zifu world of true essence shockingly sank into a state of turmoil. The gigantic dragon skeleton was like a berserk zombie dragon, stirring up the wind and clouds in all directions. It danced up and down, and its ferocious power continuously crashed into the mountains and the sky below. Buzz! Soon, Chu Hen's Saint Soul, which was hovering above the true origin energy river, opened its eyes and looked at the ferocious dragon skeleton with a chilly gaze. Screech! At the same time, the sacred winged heavenly flame, sparrow, Mo, Qingli dived down like a cloud of fire. It spread its wings and whizzed past Chu Hen's body like a shadow. This is the dragon skeleton from the ancient baron's realm? I almost forgot about it. What's going on? Did it come back to life? It was not completely dead in the first place. Although its physical body was destroyed, there is still a remnant of its soul in the skeleton. Chu Hen replied calmly. Oh, Mo Qingli was a little surprised. You shared your power with it. It was like that before, but then I found a spiritual vein under the Wu Zone. I see. There was no need for too much explanation. Mo Qingli immediately understood what had happened. Over the past year or so, the dragon skeleton had been absorbing the power of the spiritual vein at the foot of the sky observation peak day and night. A huge amount of power was constantly being supplied to it, and its soul was gradually strengthening. In other words, the dragon skeleton had now regained some of its consciousness, and it began to instinctively resist Chu Hen's restraints. It seems like its wings have hardened and it wants to escape, Mo Qingli said calmly. Oomph. Chu Hen chuckled. You have to get my permission first. Whoosh. After saying that, the saint soul directly stepped into the air and flew toward the dragon skeleton. This is my territory. Even if you're a real dragon, you have to obediently lie on the ground. Roar. An earth-shattering roar of anger set off a torrent of energy. The dragon skeleton danced in the air, and the golden light that rose from its body transformed into an illusory body. It leaped into the air, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it pounced toward Chu Hen. In the next instant, the sharp claws of the huge dragon's skeleton solidly collided with Chu Hen's saint soul. Bang! An enormous sound that shook the heavens rang out. The violent and ferocious golden wave of air was like a huge ripple that expanded endlessly. The earth shook, the mountains swayed, and the space trembled. Chu Hen felt as if he had been hit by a mountain. His palms and arms went slightly numb, and he actually retreated. The dragon skeleton, which was also retreating, opened its mouth and roared angrily. What a powerful force! Chu Hen was secretly shocked. Be serious. Don't be too careless. The saintly winged heavenly flame sparrow also reminded him. It is the most ancient divine beast. Even if only its bones are left, the power of every inch of its bones is not weaker than a divine artifact. Divine artifact? Chu Hen was even more surprised. At the same time, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of solemnity. Roar. At the same time, the dragon skeleton once again roared. Its sharp claws were surrounded by dazzling golden patterns. They tore through the air, and the cold light was like a blade. Oomph. Don't forget, this is my purple mansion world, hum. Before the voice died away, a shocking figure that looked like a fiend god suddenly appeared under the sky. The black shadow held up the sky, and an extremely violent energy was quietly gathered in the palm of the black shadow. It was like a rapidly brewing undercurrent in the deep sea. Along with the trembling space, a majestic black beam of light shot out from the palm of the demon god Shadow. With a shocking momentum, it firmly struck the body of the dragon skeleton. Boom! The incomparably violent impact exploded in the sky. The magnificent scene was like a collision of stars and clouds. Air flowed, and the dragon skeleton was immediately sent flying. Then, countless agitated sounds of wind and thunder swept across the area. A huge lightning net came down, attacking the dragon skeleton from all directions with the momentum of an encirclement. Crack! The wantonly lightning bolts covered his entire body, like a web of lightning entangling and swimming around his body. Roar! The dragon skeleton, which was constantly being attacked, let out an angry roar. In the next instant, a black shadow suddenly appeared above its head. Without any time to react, a black stone tablet that was like a mountain range directly fell from the sky. It was like a meteorite as it heavily smashed into its body. Boom! The earth shook and the mountains swayed. It was like a mountain of Mount Tai pressing down on a peerless calamity. The dragon skeleton was directly pressed down by the supreme power of the divine stone of the great path. Roar! The dragon's skeleton twisted its head and tail, trying to break free. However, the middle section was firmly pressed down, and it couldn't move. Buzz, buzz. Then, a pair of huge purple eyes, like those of a demon god, slowly appeared in the sky. Demonic purple light poured down, and the invisible pressure stopped the dragon skeleton from moving. Below the purple eyes, Chu Hen's saint soul stood in the air, looking at the dragon skeleton with indifference. If you are of use to me, I will do my best to reconstruct your physical body in the future. But if you refuse to repent, I will once again send you back to the dragon burial abyss. His indifferent voice exuded the majesty of a king. The scarlet flames in the dragon skeleton's empty eye sockets faintly pulsed. It raised its head, as if sizing up the seemingly weak but powerful human in front of it. After a while, the ferocious aura it emitted gradually receded, and the scarlet flames in its eye sockets also calmed down. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth twitched. With a thought, the divine stone of the great path that was suppressing the dragon skeleton was immediately moved away. At this moment, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow suddenly flew above the dragon skeleton. Along with the release of tens of thousands of dazzling, colorful light patterns, in an instant, with the dragon skeleton as the center, numerous unpredictable and complicated array patterns spread out in all directions. Tens of thousands of flourishing ancient runes spread out, like giant chains of fiend gods and devils enveloping him. What are you doing? Chu Hen looked at the other party, a little confused. Soul possession forbidden technique. A demon race secret technique that fuses its power with yours. Your power can help it become stronger, and you can also control its power. Chu Hen's eyes lit up, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Sky observation peak. No one knew what lay beneath the calm mountain range. The spirit vein hidden deep in the underground river was like the blood of the earth, containing extremely pure and majestic power. Chu Hen quietly stood in the spirit vein with his eyes closed. Like a river flowing into the sea, an endless stream of immortal spiritual energy entered his body. Lines of strange runes could faintly be seen flashing outside his body. Every rune was like a bridge that connected two different powers, mysterious and unpredictable, ever-changing. Time flew by, and the sun and moon rotated. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed quickly. When the first rays of the sun shone on the Marshall Sex mountain gate on the third day, the loud and clear bell sound was like a horn from the battlefield, echoing inside and outside the sect on the peaks of the various peaks. Many imposing figures stood up one after another and looked at the sky. Dongxian Peak, Shiqiong Peak, Nanling Peak, Beichin Peak. Pairs of sharp eyes quietly opened, glowing like sharp swords. In the underground cave of Sky Observation Peak, whoosh, the river of spirit vein rippled. Chu Hen, who had been silent for 2 days, lifted his eyelids. Under the dim light, his cold eyes were as bright as the stars. An impassioned dragon roar came from Chu Hen's body. He slowly stood up, and an incomparable aura surged out like a tide. His deep eyes seemed to penetrate through the layers of rocks in the cave and reach the boundless 9 heavens. Sect War. Chapter 1202. Star Peak. It was located on the southeast side of the Marshall sect. Normally, the Star Peak was not open to the sect's disciples, and even the sect's elders were rarely able to set foot here. That was the oldest cultivation place in the Marshall sect. The jade palaces that towered into the clouds were like stars under the sky, emitting an ancient aura. Screech. In the sky above the Starry Sky building, there was an eagle flying through the clouds, displaying a heroic and majestic aura. At this moment, in the air above the mountain peaks, there was actually a vast and boundless Ling Shao sky platform floating in the air. The soaring sky platform was square in shape, with a length and width of more than 2,000 meters. From afar, the soaring sky platform was like a huge meteorite floating in the air, with a thickness of more than 300 meters. The top of the platform seemed to have been cut flat, and it was neatly paved with stone slabs. It gave people the feeling that it was like an inverted mountain peak. The soaring sky platform plaza had such a spectacular aura that it broke free from gravity and floated in the air above 1,000 meters. It was as if there was an invisible force holding it up high. Obviously, this would be the battle platform for the sex war. The main peak of the Star Peak was located on the north side of the soaring sky battle platform. On the Star Peak, there was an incomparably spectacular ancient pavilion that emitted a majestic aura like that of a heavenly palace. Not only was the pavilion extraordinary, it was also especially spacious. The clearly defined pavilion faced the soaring sky battle platform in front of it. From afar, there were more than 10 exquisite and dignified stone chairs placed on the pavilion. The stone chairs were lined up in a row, and there were 4 stone chairs placed at a higher position. On the other hand, in the east, west, and south of the soaring sky battle platform, there were also majestic viewing platforms built. Every wide viewing platform was like a city tower that stood in the sky. There were all sorts of ancient and spectacular buildings and towers. Such a scene was like a myriad of stars orbiting the moon, incomparable. At this moment, the stargazing platforms around the battle platform were already packed with people. Young figures with extraordinary auras stepped through the air and arrived. The gathering of the wind and clouds, the battle between dragons and tigers. An invisible sharp aura quietly spread out. It's really amazing. Chu Hen, who was on the southern tower's viewing platform, looked at the ancient buildings around him in amazement. The arena, floating in the air in the middle, was an eye-opener for him. It's indeed amazing. It's actually able to stand so steadily in the air. Long Xuan, who was beside him, nodded in admiration. If we fight on it, will it collapse? Yi Yao asked casually. Don't worry. Wu Mian quietly snuck over and happened to overhear their conversation. He explained, the sky battle ring is built with the heaven and earth grand formation as its foundation. You don't have to worry about it being destroyed at all. No matter how badly it's damaged, it'll be able to repair itself very quickly. Chu Hen nodded. I see. Brother Chu, Lady Xuan, you are here? At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. The eyes of Chu Hen and the others lit up. Brother Zhao. The newcomers were none other than Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai. After not seeing each other for more than a year, the aura exuded by the siblings was obviously much stronger than before. Seeing Chu Hen, Zhao Qingyi smiled brightly. I heard from Lady Yi Yao that the two of you went out to do something. I was wondering when you would come back. You're just in time for the sect war. Indeed, you came back just in time. Chu Hen also faintly smiled. I heard that you defeated Lu Chun at Heaven Marshal Peak 2 days ago. Zhao Qingkai looked at him with his big, bright eyes. Amazing. Now that guy can't even participate in the sect war. Towards these matters, Chu Hen only smiled faintly and did not say much. However, Wu Mian immediately began to boast. Of course, our junior brother, Chu Hen, really blinded countless people that day. He didn't even use much strength, and Lu Chun fell. Haha, is that so? I'm looking forward to your next performance. Zhao Qingyi laughed. I dare say that he's definitely in the top 8. Wu Mian patted his chest and said, he's probably just slightly weaker than our Beichen Peak Academy's senior brother Wu Yan. Are you talking about me? Just as Wu Mian finished speaking, a gentle and refreshing laughter was heard. Everyone's gaze subconsciously swept over. Wu Mian immediately raised his eyebrows and said excitedly, Wu. Senior brother Wu Yan, Yao, Long Xuan, and Zhao Qingyi were also surprised. Having been in the martial organization for more than a year, they were no longer unfamiliar with the top figures on the Heaven Martial list. Wu Yan, the number 1 of Beichen Peak Academy. The existence ranked 5th on the Heaven Martial list. Although he was not the most popular candidate for this year's champion, he was still highly anticipated. Senior brother Wu Yin. Chu Hen cupped his fists, a hint of warmth surging in his eyes. He still felt a trace of gratitude towards Wu Yin. Wu Yin revealed a clean and refreshing smile and walked forward, saying, "I'm very happy to see you again. No matter what, it's good that you're back." Previously, when Chu Hen had a conflict with Pei Yi, Wu Yin was a witness. Chu Hen also understood the meaning behind Wu Yan's words. He was afraid that Wu Yin more or less thought that he had left the martial organization because of Pei Yi. However, Chu Hen did not give too much of an explanation. He just smiled and nodded without saying anything else. Wow. At this moment, there was a sudden loud noise on the other side of the viewing tower. At the same time, many exclamations could be heard. In a rapidly parting crowd, a beautiful and graceful figure with an otherworldly temperament appeared in everyone's vision. Senior Sister Qianying, it's Senior Sister Qianying. Wu Mian elbowed Chu Hen excitedly. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows, and a faint light flashed in his eyes. Qianying, ranked 4th above Wu Yin, she was the proud daughter of Dongxian Peak. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also extremely talented. She was one of the hottest candidates to win the sect battle. Qianying's appearance instantly overshadowed the other geniuses around her. However, at this moment, an indifferent and arrogant voice was heard. Qiu Xingyi is absent again. It seems that he has handed the task of Dongxian Peak's championship to you. In an instant, an invisible, piercingly cold aura spread out. Everyone was shocked, and the crowd quickly retreated to the sides. Surrounded by more than a dozen West Dome Peak disciples, 3 figures with extraordinary bearings and proud expressions walked straight towards Qianying. The person in the lead had a cold aura, deep eyes, and a hint of frivolity at the corner of his mouth. On his chest was a tattoo of Qilin. If Qianying was the bright moon, then his appearance was like the sun, oppressive. It's Senior Brother Pei Yi. Pei Yi, the chief disciple of West Dome Peak. Chapter 1203. Qiu Xingyi is going to be absent again. Looks like he has handed the mission of Dongxian Peak's championship to you. Pei Yi, head disciple of West Dome Peak. Ranked 3rd on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. An invisible cold aura spread out. Everyone in the stargazing grandstand could not help but be alarmed by this powerful aura. Everyone present looked at him in awe. Not far away, Chu Hen, who was standing with Wu Yin and Zhao Qingyi, had a dark look in his eyes. His determined face revealed a hint of sternness. Pei Yi's appearance instantly gave off an invisible pressure. It was completely different from Qianying's elegance. It was a unique and domineering aura. Behind Pei Yi was Lu Liao, ranked 9th on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard, and Yang Ao, ranked 10th. Their expressions were also arrogant and frivolous, ignoring the existence of others around them. Pei Yi's steps were steady. It was as if every step he took increased the pressure on the crowd. He looked at Qianying in front of him with a faint smile on his face. Qianying raised her eyebrows and said, "Shouldn't you be happy that Qiu Xingyi is absent?" Pei Yi smiled playfully. "Not at all. You're right. I almost forgot that you're only ranked 3rd. There's still one more place between you and 1st. As soon as he finished speaking, a rather lazy voice was heard. "I say, Junior Sister Qianying, you're deliberately making things difficult. The competition hasn't even started yet, and you're already trying to make things difficult for me?" Whoosh! In an instant, the entire stargazing tower was in an uproar again. Everyone looked in the same direction at the same time. A young man with handsome eyebrows, who was dressed rather casually, was sitting on a stone pillar with his body slanted sideways. Even though he had a cynical look on his face, his appearance was like a bright star in the night sky, attracting everyone's attention. Senior Brother Wang Li. It's Senior Brother Wang Li. As expected of Senior Brother Wang Li, accidents happen every time. Like the blazing sun, the luminous moon, and the stars, the appearance of these 3 top experts caused the surrounding airflow to become restless. The sect war had yet to begin, but the sharpness between the geniuses had already been revealed. As one of the three most popular candidates for this year's championship, there was a quiet competition below the stage before the big battle. If you think I'm attracting hatred, then so be it. Qi Qianying replied calmly. Hee hee, you have character. I like it. Wang Li smiled and looked at Pei Yi. She didn't hide the provocation between her brows. On the other hand, Pei Yi merely sneered as traces of hostility surged in his deep eyes. See you in the finals. These three simple words were like a declaration of war from Pei Yi. Wang Li's face darkened, and her expression became solemn. It was as if he could see an even more intense fighting spirit in his opponent's eyes. The corner of Wang Li's mouth curled up as she smiled frivolously. I'm looking forward to it. Soon after, Pei Yi didn't say anything more. He turned around and headed towards the stargazing tower in the west. In his eyes, apart from Wang Li and Qi Qianying, no one else in the crowd was worthy of his attention. How arrogant! It feels like the finals have already been booked by the two of them, Zhao Qingkai muttered to himself. Of course. Don't they know who they are? Wu Mian shook his head and sighed. At this moment, Yang Ao and Lu Liao, who were following behind Pei Yi, suddenly glanced in the direction of Chu Hen from the corner of their eyes. Looking at Chu Hen, who was standing in the crowd, Yang Ao's face revealed a cold and disdainful expression. He raised his hand and made a throat-slitting gesture. It was an undisguised provocation and a naked threat. Chu Hen saw Yang Ao's actions, but his face was full of disdain. At the same time, a hint of coldness gradually appeared in his eyes. Wu Yan, who was next to him, reached out and patted Chu Hen's shoulder. It's okay. The newcomers are participating in the sect battle to gain experience. If they encounter an opponent who's beyond their abilities, they can just surrender. No one would laugh at a newcomer. Chu Hen smiled, nodded, and did not say anything else. Wu Yin nodded slightly and said to the others, You guys continue chatting. I'll be leaving first. If we meet in the arena, don't hold back. Ha! If that's really the case, we can only blame it on our bad luck. Zhao Qingyi laughed loudly. All the best. With that, Wu Yan bid farewell and left. Zhao Qingkai looked at Wu Yan's back with some admiration and said, Senior brother Wu Yan is really warm. I didn't expect him to be so nice. Of course, how bad can a man with the same surname as me be? Wu Mian said shamelessly. Then, he immediately attracted a lot of eye rolls. As time passed, more and more people gathered around the Xingqing Peak. Even the higher-ups of the sect and the elders were gradually arriving. With the soaring firmament battle platform floating in the center as the center, there were people gathered in all directions. As the grandest ceremony of the martial sect, it was believed that not many people were willing to miss it. The vast Ling Shao battle platform was like a large meteorite floating thousands of meters in the sky. The Xingqing Peak to the north of it was even more majestic, exuding an ancient aura like an immortal palace. The other three spectator arenas were also incomparably grand and spectacular. If one were to look down from the heavens, they would feel like three giant ships floating in the sky. Dang! The melodious and vigorous sound of the bell spread through the entire martial sect mountain gate, followed by the loud sound of a horn that shook the heavens and the earth. An old man dressed like a deacon elder slowly stepped onto the first platform at the front of the Star Pillar Peak. Then, the noisy atmosphere gradually calmed down. It's Elder Lu, Zhao Qingkai said as he looked at the old man from afar. Chu Hen, Zhao Qingyi, and Long Xuanchuang nodded their heads. This Elder Lu was none other than the old man who was in charge of recruiting new disciples in Flying Cloud City in the Qinqing Prefecture. He was also the one who exempted Yi Yao, Long Xuanchuang, Zhao Qingyi, and the others from taking the test, allowing them to enter the martial sect directly. Of course, it was also because he did not choose Chu Hen and ordered him to continue with the test. Everyone! A deep and vigorous voice rang out from Elder Lu's mouth, causing the hearts of the people on the spectator stands to tremble. The sect war is about to begin. Let us invite our 8-Peak Academy Masters. Hua! In an instant, the entire place was filled with roars of joy. Along with the earth-shattering applause, The clouds in the sky suddenly shook the heavens, and a piercingly cold gale swept out in all directions. A mountain-like pressure enveloped the area, and 8 dazzling golden pillars of light suddenly descended from the sky. With a shocking momentum, they landed on the spectator stands on the Xingqing Peak. The airflow that filled the air spread out layer by layer. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The 8 pillars of light shrunk rapidly. Then, 8 powerful silhouettes with auras as steady as Mount Tai and thick as the ocean appeared before everyone's eyes. Greetings, Peak Masters and Hall Masters. All the disciples of the martial arts faction, including the sect elders, bowed respectfully. Dongxian, Shiqiang, Nanling, Beichen. 4 Peak Masters, 4 Hall Masters. Chu Hen's gaze swept across the crowd. The only Hall Master he had ever met, Luo Tsong, was among them. Brother Chu Hen, that's the Peak Master. Yi Yao introduced to Chu Hen softly. Looking at the direction she was pointing at, Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang's cold gaze was sharp. His body was tall, and he exuded an imposing aura. Chu Hen nodded to himself. Compared to Hall Master Luo Tsong's gentleness, Peak Master Yuan Shang exuded a righteous aura that abhorred evil. It had to be said that it was Yi Yao's fortune to be chosen as Peak Master Yuan Shang's disciple. There's no need to be so courteous. A handsome middle-aged man with a slender figure and a jade-like face walked forward and raised his hand. Compared to the other Peak Masters, the middle-aged man was not only the youngest, but he was also elegant like a marquis, exuding an innate air of dignity and nobility. Thank you, Peak Master Dongxian. Thank you, Peak Masters. All the sect disciples responded in unison. Peak Master Dongxian? Chu Hen was stunned and murmured in surprise. Could he be? That's right. Ao Yun Villa. Wu Mian replied in a deep voice, his eyes filled with admiration. Wu Mian had linked the 3 words Ao Yun Manor to Old Een Monkey before. More than 10 years ago, Old Een Monkey had broken through in the sect battle and made it to the top 8. During the quarterfinals, he had met the top genius of Dongxian Peak Academy at that time, Ao Yun Villa. In the end, Ao Yun Villa had won. Apart from defeating Old Een Monkey, Ao Yun Villa's glory was innumerable. He had occupied the top spot of the Heaven Martial Leaderboard for several years. He was also the only person who was qualified to be the Peak Master of Dongxian before the age of 40. Qiu Xingyi, senior brother Qiu, is his direct disciple, right? Zhao Qingkai asked casually. Wu Mian nodded in affirmation. That's right. As the saying goes, a great master produces a great disciple. Qiu Xingyi was taken in as the only direct disciple by Peak Master Dongxian when he first joined. For the past 3 years, Qiu Xingyi has occupied the top spot of the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. He's no weaker than Ao Yun Villa back then. It's just a pity that senior brother Qiu isn't participating in the sect battle this year. He's probably giving the others a chance, Zhao Qingyi said. Perhaps. However, Wang Li and Pei Ye's abilities are terrifying as well. With the 2 of them here, I'm looking forward to the sect battle. As they discussed in private, the 4 Peak Masters and the 4 Hall Masters took their seats. In Ao Yun Villa, Yuan Shang and the other 3 Peak Masters sat on the highest level of the spectator stand, while Luo Tsong and the other 3 Hall Masters sat on the middle level with the other elders to watch the battle. Why don't I see Lord Sect Master? Chu Hen asked casually. This is only the first round of the preliminary round. Lord Sect Master won't be here. Sometimes, he won't even show up for the finals. Wu Mian explained. The few of them nodded and seemed to understand something. The 4 Peak Masters sat on the Star Pillar Peaks spectator stand. They did not seem to greet each other warmly. Ao Yun Villa, the Dongxian Peaks Peak Master, was the first to break the silence. Looks like these disciples are in high spirits. Perhaps this year's competition will be more exciting than the previous one. Peak Master Ao's brilliant disciple isn't here. What's there to be excited about? There was a hint of dissatisfaction in the indifferent tone. The one who spoke was an old man with a cold gaze. He was the West Sky Peaks Peak Master, Sidu Song. Ao Yun Villa laughed and said, Peak Master Situ must be joking. It's not that Shinji doesn't want to participate in the competition, but he's recently encountered a bottleneck. Due to his poor condition, he's been in closed-door cultivation for the past few days. That's why he's absent. Is that so? He was absent last time, and he's absent again this time? Is he really in closed-door cultivation, or is he afraid of losing the competition and losing face as the first on the Heaven Marshal leaderboard? Situ's song said coldly. They quarrel as soon as they meet. It's really not suitable for them to sit together. Nanling Peak's Peak Master, Ning Xiushui, was the only female among the 8 Peak Masters. She was dressed in a Taoist robe, and her face was fair and clean. Although there were faint wrinkles at the corner of her eyes, it was not difficult to tell that she was a beautiful woman when she was young. Don't waste any more time. Let's begin. Ning Xiushui said to Elder Liu, who was on the first level of the spectator stand. Yes, Elder Liu replied respectfully. He turned to the side and nodded to the other elders not far away. Then he faced the wide soaring heaven fighting platform. Chapter 1204. I hereby announce, the sect war begins now. Begin now. The majestic momentum impacted the heartstrings of every martial ancestor realm, disciple present like a sound wave. It was as if a burning flame of war had been ignited in everyone's heart. Every pair of eyes seemed to be leaping with flames. The flow of blood uncontrollably became faster and faster. Following Elder Liu's words, over a dozen elders flew out from the Star Peaks viewing platform, heading towards the soaring firmament battle platform in front of them. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A dozen or so figures emitting majestic Reiki energy landed at the edge of the arena. All of them were zone-level arcane masters. Everyone present was secretly shocked by this. The dozen or so zone-level arcane masters formed seals with their palms at the same time. The majestic Reiki energy surged out like a flood breaking through a dam. Accompanied by countless dazzling and beautiful runes, the soaring firmament battle ring instantly lit up with streaks of patterns that overflowed with flowing light. Every light rune was like a spreading divine vine, rapidly intertwining and covering the surface of the arena. Buzz! Waves of powerful energy fluctuations radiated out. The brilliant complex runes immediately constructed an incomparably majestic giant glyph. Its aura was vast like a divine disk. Following that, the glyph shone brightly, as if a heaven-opening formation had been activated on the arena. Under countless gazes that were filled with astonishment, they saw majestic golden doors slowly rise from the fighting ring one after another. The golden gates rose one after another, like the ruins of an ancient god breaking out of the ground. Whoosh! About 10 seconds later, a vast, surging, and piercingly cold aura swept out in all directions. On the huge numinous sky battle platform, 32 huge golden doors were erected. Each gate was 100 meters tall and over 10 meters wide. They stood on the arena like sacred monuments. Each gate shone brightly, with a golden light screen floating in the middle. It looked like a space-time gate opened from space. Looking at the giant golden doors in front of them, everyone present revealed a shocked expression. The rules this year are different from previous years. Elder Liu's loud voice once again rang in everyone's ears. As you can see, there are a total of 32 doors on the stage. Behind these 32 doors is an illusory world similar to the Star Dream realm. And that illusory world is your battlefield. An illusory battlefield similar to the Astral Dream realm. Many people had surprised expressions on their faces. The battle will be a one-on-one elimination. After one person wins, another person will be eliminated. The eliminated person will be immediately transported out, and the winner will continue to compete with the other winner in the next round. Elder Liu explained the rules of the competition in detail. In other words, there will be fewer and fewer participants left inside, and the battle will continue until only one person remains. Of course, the final victor will directly enter the top 32 of the sect tournament. The crowd burst into an uproar as soon as he said that. Many people had grave expressions on their faces. Damn, this rule change is too overbearing, isn't it? In other words, the top 32 participants will be decided today. Please don't meet Pei Yi, Wang Li, and the others, or else there's no hope at all. What a terrifying rule. Looks like many people won't even have the chance to stand on that stage. According to the previous rules, at the very least, there were many disciples who could stand on the fighting platform and show off their skills, persisting for 1 or 2 rounds. And this rule was to put a bunch of trapped beasts in a cage, and only the last survivor could advance to the first round. To most people, it was cruel. A quick battle. That's exactly what I want. Lu Liao, the zone-level arcane master, squinted his eyes and chuckled, then said to Yang Ao beside him, "Looks like many people are scared to death. Please don't meet Senior Pei Yi." Yang Ao squinted his eyes and smiled. "I wonder if Senior Pei Yi will enter the same zone as Wang Li." The speaker did not mean it, but the listener thought it. Pei Yi, who was standing in front, had a cold glint in his eyes. His sword-like gaze swept towards Wang Li, who was standing on the southern stand. At the same time, Wang Li also sensed something and looked over. Invisible sparks seemed to collide in the air. Buzz! While Elder Lu was explaining the rules, an eye-catching number appeared at the top of the 32 giant doors on the battle arena. From 1 to 32, there were no repeats on each of the golden doors. At the same time, the martial ancestor disciples seemed to have sensed something and picked up a transparent crystal ball. Inside the crystal ball, with his name engraved on it, a corresponding number quietly appeared. 17, Yao said in surprise. 9. Long Xuanchuang also raised her crystal ball and said. 3. 28. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai also reported their numbers. Big brother Chu Hen, what about you? Yao hurriedly asked. Everyone turned to look at each other. Chu Hen picked up the crystal ball. Inside the crystal ball, above the 2 words Chu Hen, the number 24 was faintly flashing. It's 24. That's great. No one repeated it. Yao said happily. Wu Mian furrowed his brows and gritted his teeth with an expression that said, "Who did I offend? Damn it, I'm also 24. Everyone was stunned at first, but looking at each other's funny look, they could not help but laugh out loud. Don't worry. Big brother, Chu Hen won't break your legs." Yao covered her mouth and laughed. The corner of Wu Mian's eyes twitched, and he said faintly, "That'll have to happen." Everyone should be clear about the rules, right? Everyone, take your seat. Although we can't directly observe the battle situation in the illusory world, the name of the person with the most consecutive victories will appear on the door. After saying that, Elder Lu waved his hand, and his voice was as loud as thunder. All the participating disciples, enter the competition. The majestic sound of the horn reverberated in the sky above the sect. Swoosh! In an instant, figures with fierce auras leaped up one after another, like a shoal of fish entering the sea. They quickly rushed towards the fighting ring in front of them. Buzz, buzz! Ripples appeared on the golden gates, one after another. The number of people on the 4 viewing platforms quickly decreased, and one by one, they entered the golden doors. Let's go as well. Zhao Qingyi clenched her fists and said excitedly. Yao and Long Xuanchuang nodded in succession. Big brother, Chu Hen. Let's go. Chu Hen's eyes shone with fighting spirit. His figure immediately moved, and like a leading sheep, he led the people around him towards the soaring sky, fighting ring. Pei Yi, Wang Li, Qi Qianing, Wu Yin, and the other top monstrous geniuses on the heavenly martial ranking also turned into beams of light and rapidly leaped into the golden door. Door number 24. Chu Hen immediately arrived in front of it, and the majestic door was like a door that opened to another world. Buzz! A circle of light ripples spread out on the light screen inside the door. Chu Hen suddenly saw a white light flash before his eyes, and then it was as if he had entered a spatial teleportation array. Whoosh! A chaotic wave of air stacked up, and in the next moment, a moist smell of earth assaulted his face. What appeared in front of Chu Hen was a lush forest. The dense, towering trees blocked the sunlight, and the surroundings were as quiet as a valley. Chu Hen strode forward and walked on the soft grass. But right at this moment, a piercingly cold aura suddenly swept over from behind. The bleak killing intent was like a sharp knife that stabbed towards Chu Hen's back. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, but he didn't even turn his head. A majestic aura erupted from his body, and the domineering true origin energy directly formed a black ring-shaped light screen behind him. Thump! With an incomparably loud bang, all the power that attacked Chu Hen collapsed inch by inch, and then a violent counterforce struck back. In an instant, a miserable sound was heard as he was directly sent flying, smashing through several large trees in succession and heavily falling to the ground. The ambusher on the ground clutched his chest with one hand and used the other to support himself. His face was filled with shock. He didn't expect to encounter such a powerful opponent in the first round. Immediately afterward, the young figure slowly turned around. Wei clearly saw the other's face. The shock on his face immediately turned into deep fear and unease. Chapter 1205. Lingxiao Battle Platform. 32 giant gates stood tall on the platform. Each of the giant gates was like a space-time gate that led to another plane of space at this moment. The originally dense crowd disappeared from the surrounding viewing platforms like a receding tide. Other than the senior management of the martial sect and a few scattered disciples who did not intend to participate in the competition, the 4 viewing platforms were empty. The lively atmosphere had become a little cold. Meow. On top of a towering stone pillar in the southern viewing platform, a black and white kitten lay on its side in a particularly arrogant posture. It squinted its eyes, constantly paying attention to the movements of the Golden Gates. On the viewing platform of the Star Peak in the north, the management of the martial sect could not help but look for a topic to pass the time. Isn't that Lu Chun, ranked 13th on the Heaven Martial list? He actually did not participate in the sect battle. An elder with especially sharp eyes glanced at a young figure standing on the eastern viewing platform. The other elders and a few masters of the Peak Academies also subconsciously looked over there. It's really Lu Chun. That's right. The 13th on the Heaven Martial list is also absent. I'm afraid you guys don't know. I heard that the day before yesterday, Lu Chun was seriously injured by a disciple of the Beichin Peak Academy, and then he was unable to participate in the competition. As soon as these words came out, all the elders were stunned. A disciple of the Beichin Peak Academy? That kid Wu Yin? It doesn't seem to be Wu Yin. It's not Wu Yin. Then who is it? All the elders were a little surprised, and even the Academy Master Luo Tsong was a little surprised. One must know that in the entire Beichin Peak Academy, only Wu Yin was on the Heaven Martial list. Those who could defeat Lu Chun naturally had the strength to enter the Heaven Martial list. Who could that person be? It seems to be called Buzz. Before they could finish talking, a layer of slight ripples suddenly appeared in one of the giant golden gates on the battle platform. In the next moment, a figure flew out of the golden light in a sorry state. He fell heavily to the ground, but his face was filled with unwillingness and helplessness. Oh, the first person to be eliminated has appeared. The attention of all the upper echelons and elders on Xingqing Peak was attracted. Buzz. Following that, another giant door glowed with a gentle light, and the second eliminated person was teleported out. It was like a chain reaction as circle after circle of slight spatial fluctuations spread out on the arena, and numerous figures in a sorry state were successively blasted out from the enormous golden door. Looking from afar, it looked like a school of fish had drilled out of a net and were returning to the table one after another. However, the distance between the giant doors was still very wide. Although the Wu Zong disciples who had been eliminated were panicking, they were not crowded at all. Elder Lu, who was in charge of controlling the situation, also shouted, "Those who have been eliminated, please leave the fighting ring." Everyone helplessly shook their heads and sighed. They unwillingly retreated to the spectator stands. He hurriedly walked out of the arena, and the sect battle came to an end. In a dark forest that smelled of moist earth, the ground was littered with fallen leaves and branches. A disheveled figure fell to the ground with a face full of horror in shock as he looked at the handsome face that turned around. "It's you." Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the pale face with interest. "Long time no see, newcomer king." Newcomer king? There was a hint of playfulness in his frivolous tone. This person was none other than Qi Xing, who was previously regarded as the #1 newcomer and had a conflict with Chu Hen during the newcomer competition. You actually came back." Qi Xing was surprised and suspicious, and a cold light surged in his eyes. Chu Hen shrugged. "Is there a problem?" You're really bold. You still dare to come back after offending senior brother Pei. If you know what's good for you, you should be an obedient tortoise. You talk too much. Do you want to go out by yourself? Or do you want me to send you out? I want you to scram." As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Xing's eyes exploded with a ruthless light. He suddenly stood up and pounced towards Chu Hen like a ferocious tiger. At the same time, he condensed his hands, and a sharp sword appeared in his hands. The sword was like lightning as it rapidly stabbed towards Chu Hen's throat. Die. Facing his opponent's swift and fierce sword, Chu Hen did not even have the intention of dodging. His eyes turned cold as he slightly opened his mouth. Roar! A deep dragon roar was suddenly emitted from his mouth. The invisible sound wave impact was like an incomparably fierce and cold hurricane. The space faintly trembled, and a circle of vigorous, transparent light surged out. Ding! A crisp sound rang out, and the long sword in Qi Xing's hand actually broke into 2 pieces. What? Qi Xing's expression changed drastically. His fierce face turned into a thick expression of shock. He originally wanted to sneak an attack when Yi Shiwen was unprepared. He never thought that Chu Hen's strength had already reached a height that he could not reach. Bang! An incomparably heavy sound rang out. Without any ability to resist, Chu Hen's heavy foot firmly landed on his opponent's chest. Along with the sound of bones breaking, a large mouthful of blood spurted out of Qi Xing's mouth. He flew out rapidly. His pupils constricted, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. A transparent crystal ball flew out of Qi Xing's body. Accompanied by the sound of cracking, the crystal ball automatically burst and shattered. Immediately after, a ball of golden light quickly wrapped around Qi Xing's body. Wah! The air current in the space trembled, and Qi Xing immediately disappeared in front of Chu Hen. Following that, a beam of white light shone down, enveloping Chu Hen within it. It was as if he was in a teleportation array, and his position in space was rotated. This also meant that Chu Hen was about to go to the next battlefield. Outside the Star Peak, on the fighting stage, just when the people who were eliminated were leaving the battle arena, a series of light runes surged. Then, a figure covered in blood flew out from the 24th golden door. Bang, bang, bang. Like a sandbag, he fell heavily on the ground, and a thick layer of stone bricks was smashed into pieces. What was going on? Everyone in the room was startled by this. A few people who were closer ran forward to take a look. When they saw the situation of this person, they all frowned and couldn't bear to look at it. Oh my God, isn't this Qi Xing? Isn't it too tragic? Who did it? He was beaten so hard that even his mother wouldn't recognize him. His chest is sunken. It's terrible. Didn't he crush the crystal bead? The crystal bead that was issued before, in addition to representing the participant's identity, was also a pass to enter and exit the battlefield. If you encountered an opponent that was too strong inside, you could crush the crystal bead on your own. Once the crystal bead was broken, you would be teleported out. At the same time, it also meant that you would be eliminated. Of course, behind the golden door was an illusory battlefield created by the reverberating star dream. It could sense whether the contestants were in danger of dying and make a judgment. If the injury was too serious and the aura of life was very weak, they would be automatically teleported out. Although the competition in the martial ancestor realm was cruel, but they also didn't want a large number of disciples to die in one competition. I guess he didn't have time to give up. TSK, how pitiful. I don't know if he can survive. I guess he'll be crippled even if he's saved. Looking at the half-dead Qi Xing being taken away by the 2 medical elders, A few Wu's own disciples secretly shook their heads. How ruthless! Whoosh! Chu Hen, who had left the previous battlefield, was then teleported to the next one. This time, it was an old and dilapidated palace. It was desolate and quiet. 2 rows of tall and majestic stone pillars supported the roof, and a few of them had fallen to the ground. It had to be said that although it was only an illusory battlefield, the degree of reality was almost no different from that of a normal world. I'm afraid my opponent is already here. Chu Hen secretly pondered, his gaze sweeping back and forth across the huge palace. However, what surprised Chu Hen was that he couldn't sense any aura other than his in the entire palace. Still not here? Had he arrived first? Swoosh! At this moment, a sharp wind-breaking force flew from behind him without any warning. A cold light flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. He bent his body and did a somersault to dodge. Accompanied by a sharp sharpness, a silver light beam flew past Chu Hen's shoulder. The light beam flew diagonally towards the stone pillar in front of him. With a dull thud, the huge stone pillar that was a few meters in diameter was directly penetrated. What a strong penetrating force! Before Chu Hen had time to exclaim, another 2 silver light beams flew diagonally towards him. As the 2 beams of light moved, they quickly became 2 solidified arrows of flowing light. They dragged out a forceful wave of air in the air and attacked Chu Hen's 2 legs from the left and right. The instant Chu Hen leapt up, 2 silver arrows of light struck the stone tiles on the ground. 2 dark and gloomy round holes immediately appeared on the thick stone tiles. What a fast speed! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Immediately after, 3 more light arrows pierced through the air and attacked. Chu Hen dodged them once again and leapt behind a stone pillar. His gaze was slightly astonished as he looked at the empty palace hall. His opponent was actually so elusive. He had launched 3 consecutive attacks, but he still hadn't found his opponent's position. Chapter 1206. Looks like he's an expert. Chu Hen leaned against the back of a stone pillar in the palace. His gaze was slightly astonished as he swept his gaze across the empty and dilapidated hall. From the beginning until now, the other party had released 3 attacks in a row, and the trajectory of each attack was different. In other words, every time the other party launched an attack, he would change his position. Moreover, during the process of moving, there was not the slightest bit of movement. This really surprised Chu Hen. Swoosh! Immediately after, another rapid whistling sound came whistling through the air. Chu Hen hurriedly dodged. Chi! 2 sharp silver arrows of light directly pierced through from the other side of the stone pillar. Their speed was fast, and their penetrating power was strong. They almost flew past Chu Hen's shoulder. There it was. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He immediately locked his target in the direction where the light arrows flew from. He raised his hand and set off a fierce palm energy. Like a fierce wave, the vast and mighty true essence palm energy swept all the way. Boom! A broken stone statue in front of him was instantly smashed by Chu Hen's palm attack. The aftermath of the violent power spread rapidly, and the 2 surrounding stone pillars were also cut in half. Chu Hen's gaze swept up and down wantonly, but the other party was like a ghost. There was nowhere to hide. Swoosh! In the next second, 2 arrows of light, surrounded by a white cyclone, fell diagonally from above. The 2 arrows, one on the left and one on the right, deliberately sandwiched Chu Hen in the middle, blocking the path of retreat. Chu Hen was secretly surprised. What a brilliant archery technique! Sure enough, when the 2 arrows arrived on both sides of Chu Hen, one on the left and one on the right, the 3rd arrow arrived as scheduled. Whoosh! The speed of the 3rd arrow was extremely fast. The sound of air being cut was clear and heavy. Chu Hen's pupils constricted. Then, a wisp of manic lightning faintly jumped in his eyes. Crack! In an instant, a dazzling silver bolt of lightning suddenly flew out of Chu Hen's body, and it was like a piercingly cold divine lightning blade that directly collided with the 3rd arrow. Bang! Sparks and fire rained down, and the silver arrow and the dark blue lightning blade collided head-on with each other. A chaotic gust of wind followed, wreaking havoc. Immediately after, both of Chu Hen's palms stretched out in the air. Accompanied by the loud cries of countless lightning birds, the densely packed lightning bolts were like a three-dimensional net that spread out endlessly, quickly spreading towards the space in front of them. Chi-chi. In the blink of an eye, the huge palace was immediately enveloped by bright dark blue lightning. Swish, swish, swish. At the same time, more than a dozen light arrows with piercingly cold auras shot out consecutively. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The extremely lethal arrow was like an invincible sword of divine radiance, and it slashed apart the 3D net formed by the luxurious and gorgeous pillars of lightning with an all-powerful might. However, at the same time, when the opponent tore apart the lightning net, Chu Hen, who was originally standing in front of him, strangely disappeared without a trace. There seemed to be a slight tremor in the air. In the next moment, with a dull bang, sound, a chaotic and piercingly cold airflow surged out of nowhere. Countless fine silver arcs of light extended out and quickly lingered back and forth in the air, and the wanton flowing silver arcs of lightning interweaved into a human silhouette. Boom! Along with the fine silver arcs of lightning, the human silhouette then hit the stone pillar in the center of the palace. In the next moment, a strong and steady arm directly grabbed the throat of the silhouette. Sorry, the game is over. Chu Hen's light and playful voice reverberated. A violent force once again surged down, and the giant stone pillar behind the opponent was directly smashed by the astonishing impact of the hidden force. The human silhouette that was lingering in the lightning arcs then became transparent, and then quickly solidified. Following that, a pale and delicate face with a slightly flustered expression came into Chu Hen's sight. Chu Hen was startled and even more surprised. It was actually a woman. The other party had fair skin, a typical oval face, and a delicate face that gave people a soft and delicate feeling. Her figure was very light, and her fair and slender hand held a nimble and delicate crossbow. Chu Hen directly grabbed the opponent's neck, directly immobilizing him. He never expected that the person with such a sharp archery skill was actually such a delicate-looking woman. However, even so, Chu Hen did not have the intention of letting down his guard. You lost. Chu Hen looked at the opponent indifferently. Her silver teeth gently bit her lips, and her beautiful eyes were full of complicated feelings as she looked at the unfamiliar young man in front of her. There was unwillingness, confusion, surprise, and a lot of disbelief in her eyes. I know, she replied in a low voice. Give me the crystal ball. The woman's shapely eyebrows knitted, looking at Chu Hen's deep and calm eyes like the starry sky, and then she tremblingly raised her right hand. Chu Hen slightly raised his handsome eyebrows, reaching out to grab the crystal ball from the other party's hand, and then immediately loosened his grip on the other party's neck, releasing her. The woman's delicate body trembled slightly, and she almost collapsed to the ground. She slightly recovered from the edge of suffocation, gently rubbing her neck, and looked at Chu Hen with a profound gaze. Why did you let me go? I usually don't kill women. After saying that, Chu Hen did not hesitate to crush the crystal ball in his palm. Crack! Thousands of crystal fragments floated out, and the woman was immediately enveloped by a layer of golden light. Hwah! In the next instant, the other party turned into a shadow and disappeared from the hall. At the same time, a beam of white light descended from the sky and surrounded Chu Hen. He lightly heaved a sigh of relief, and a faint sense of relief surged in his eyes. In fact, every arrow released by the other party was extremely fierce, but all the attacks avoided Chu Hen's vital parts. This was also one of the reasons why Chu Hen let her go. Hwah! Subsequently, strands of white light rose up, and Chu Hen was immediately teleported to the next battlefield. Star Peak, on the fighting ring. The participating disciples that were constantly being eliminated were like birds that had broken free from the 32 cages, but these birds did not feel happy because they had obtained freedom. Extremely many people's faces were filled with unwillingness and helplessness. Suddenly, A wave of gentle light rippled out from the golden door, and then a lithe and slender, beautiful figure appeared on the arena. Compared to the others that were thrown out, bounced off, and flew out, she appeared on the fighting ring more steadily. However, her expression seemed to be a little absent-minded, as though she was still thinking about what had just happened. When everyone saw her, they couldn't help but reveal astonished expressions. It can't be. Senior Sister Ning Yu was eliminated so early? Damn, it's really her. Did she fight 2 rounds? So fast. Other than senior brother Qiu Xingyi and Lu Chun, who did not participate, she should be the first disciple on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard to be eliminated, right? Ning Yu, a genius ranked 12th on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. She and Qi Qianying were the only 2 women on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. Everyone knew that Ning Yu's assassination archery was top-notch. She had an extremely accurate calculation mind and a powerful concealment ability. Her bloodline boundary could restrain her aura to almost a state of nothingness. She could even conceal herself for a long time while she was moving. Her arrows were not real arrows. Instead, they were crystal arrows that were condensed from true origin energy. The strength of their penetrative power was not inferior to ordinary divine arrows. In the case of a side fight, it was very troublesome. It should be because she did not occupy a good geographical position. An assassin has a very high requirement for the terrain. If it was a plain area without any cover, her battle power would be greatly reduced. Someone guessed. Yes, I think so too. If it was a jungle or an abandoned city with complicated terrain, other than the top 5 of the Heaven Martial Leaderboard, no one would be able to defeat Senior Sister Ning Yu. No one doubted Ning Yu's assassination ability. If she had the advantage of terrain, her battle power would be close to the top 5 of the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. But once she was in an open plain, the assassin's power would be greatly reduced. It was precisely because of this imbalance that Ning Yu's ranking on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard was not high. Senior Sister Ning Yu, which battlefield were you eliminated in? A curious and daring disciple could not help but ask. Ning Yu was startled and silently glanced at the other person. Abandoned palace. Abandoned palace? As soon as these words came out, the audience could not help but be in an uproar. Even many of the high-level elders on the Xingqing Peak viewing platform were surprised. Although the terrain of the abandoned palace could not be compared to a jungle or a city, there were still many places where one could hide. For an assassin, it could be considered a good location. But Ning Yu had actually lost. Chapter 1207. Boom! In a desert where the sun was setting, chaotic core force shockwaves set off a sandstorm that filled the sky. As a violent force swept out, a disheveled figure was immediately sent flying. After landing heavily on the ground, he clutched his chest with one hand and found it difficult to stand up again. You've lost. An indifferent voice rang out. A slender young figure slowly walked out from the sandstorm that filled the sky. The sandstorm behind him stirred up the heavens and earth like a tornado. The martial arts sect disciple who had fallen on the ground looked at the figure in horror. The disparity in strength allowed him to quickly understand the situation in front of him. He helplessly took out a crystal pearl. Accompanied by a crisp cracking sound, the loser was then surrounded by golden light. He then turned into a ray of light and disappeared on the spot. The 8th. Chu Hen raised his gaze slightly and looked at the white pillar of light descending from the sky. He had won all 8 battles in a row. Apart from the assassin whom he had met in the second battle, the other battles were basically decided within 3 moves without exception. As of now, the battle for the top 32 was not too difficult. Wah! Immediately after, the airflow trembled and the space rotated. Chu Hen was summoned to the next battlefield. A dazzling white light surged and the surrounding desert area immediately disappeared. What appeared in front of him was a large and dilapidated arena. In the circular arena, there were empty seats in all directions. There was no one around, and it was unusually lonely. Buzz. However, in the next moment, a piercingly cold wind suddenly flew out from behind Chu Hen. Chu Hen suddenly turned around, and a cold golden sword shadow was reflected in his cold eyes. In the process of moving, the sword shadow quickly split into two, then two into four. Four sharp swords that seemed to be solid pierced towards the vital parts of Chu Hen's body. Without any hesitation, a thick black light suddenly gushed out from Chu Hen's body. The black light wantonly intertwined and quickly rushed up his right arm. He punched out, and a fierce fist force surged down like a mountain torrent. Boom! The violent fist force was like a shocking dragon, and the majestic fist light was like a ferocious tiger pouncing out, meeting the four sword shadows head-on. Incomparably violent and heavy explosions rang out one after another, and a chaotic airflow suddenly burst forth. The space trembled uneasily, and a huge pit was blasted open on the ground. The true elemental energy that was released recklessly burst forth. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed as he looked to his left and right. Buzz! With him as the center, the area within a radius of 1,000 feet lit up with luxurious and gorgeous silver runes. The patterns of light interwove with each other like dragons of the earth, swimming back and forth, forming a complicated pattern. An incomparably vigorous Reiki energy aura spread out, and the entire arena was instantly filled with a chilly, killing intent that was like the bleak autumn wind. Heh, it's actually you. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. A cold, mocking laugh came from the front. Chu Hen lifted his gaze as traces of playfulness surged in his eyes. Star Peak. The 32 golden gates that stood on the arena displayed a majestic aura. As time passed, more and more people were eliminated. One figure after another was teleported out of the golden door. Then they returned resentfully to the bottom of the stage. The number of people on the spectator stands gradually increased. This also meant that there were fewer and fewer participants inside the golden gates. At this moment, on those golden gates, there were many eye-catching, sharp words. Above each of the 32 gates, there was a person's name. According to what Elder Lu said previously, the crowd could not directly see the situation inside the arenas, but the name of the person with the most wins in each arena would appear above the gates. Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qi Qianying, Wu Yin, and the other top monstrous geniuses on the Heaven Martial Roll were impressively among them. Those disciples on the Heaven Martial Roll have basically occupied the places to advance to the next round. Ning Qiushui, the master of the South Spirit Peak, said from the high viewing platform of Star Peak. Yes, that's to be expected. Ao Yunzhuang, the master of the mysterious East Peak, nodded in agreement. Other than Ning Yu, who had been eliminated early on, the names of the remaining disciples on the Heaven Martial Roll appeared on different gates. It seems that there are a few names that I haven't seen before. The one who spoke was the master of the West Sky Peak, Sidu Song. Oh, Ning Qiushui looked surprised. Look at number 17, number 9, and number 28. Following the direction that Situ Song pointed, Ao Yunzhuang and Ning Qiushui looked over. The names above the 3 golden gates were Yi Yao, Long Xuanshuang, Zhao Qingkai. I know that Zhao Qingkai. He seems to be a new disciple of our mysterious East Peak. Ao Yunzhuang replied before continuing. His father is the city lord of Hidden Sky City, Zhao Xuanxiong. He has the bloodline limit of the Sacred Tree Soul Body passed down in his family. Sacred Tree Soul Body? Ning Qiushui was a little surprised. What about the other 2? I don't think I've heard of them before. Ao Yunzhuang shook his head. They should be new too. The martial sect did not recruit new disciples every year. Sometimes there would be a gap of 2 or even 3 years. Even though Zhao Qingkai, Yi Yao, and the rest had been in the sect for more than a year, they were still called new disciples before the next disciple recruitment. The 3 of them could not help but look at the silent Beichen Peak Master, Yuan Shang. They're from my Beichen Peak Academy, Yuan Shang said indifferently. Ha! Situ Song, the master of the West Sky Peak Master, revealed a faint smile. I didn't expect Beichen Peak Academy to produce so many outstanding geniuses this year. Not bad. It seems like Peak Master Yuan Shang has been hiding your strength all this while, right? There was a hint of frivolity in his words. Beichen Peak Academy was the weakest of the 4 peak academies. They could not avoid being ridiculed by the other peak academies in every sect battle. Now, apart from Wu Yin, there were 2 more people participating in the competition for the advancement spots. It was somewhat surprising. Yuan Shang snorted coldly at Situ Song's sarcastic words and ignored them. At this moment, he was slightly surprised in his heart. He was sure that Yi Yao would be able to stand out. After all, the best resources of Beichen Peak Academy had been used on her in the past year. However, Long Xuanchuang's outstanding performance was puzzling. Yuan Shang was not unfamiliar with Long Xuanchuang. Yi Yao had mentioned to him a few times that she hoped Beichen Peak Academy would pay attention to Long Xuanchuang. But the latter was only at the limit of the profound body bloodline. Even if they poured more effort into her, her future achievements would still be limited. Therefore, Yuan Shang did not take Yi Yao's words to heart. However, her current winning rate had actually reached the 1st place in the 9th competition zone. It was slightly unbelievable. On the southern viewing platform, Second Brother Wu, how many rounds have you passed? Did you kneel in the 1st round? F***CK off. I'm telling you, Ding Xiaoyan, I was eliminated in the 3rd round. Do you have any objections? Hee, it's only the 3rd round. I made it to the 4th round. Please call me Ding Xiaoyan in the future. Yo, you're the dignified, proud Sky Team, but none of the 4 of you passed the 4th round. You still have the nerve to brag to us? F***CK, what do you mean? Did the 3 of us offend you when you 2 quarrel? That's right. Wu Mian and Ding Xiaoyan had nothing to do, so they stood together and bickered. At this moment, a handsome figure with a slightly helpless expression landed on the viewing platform not far away. Wu Mian's eyes lit up as he hurriedly waved his hand and shouted, "Over here, Junior Brother Qing." That person was none other than Zhao Qingyi. Glancing at Wu Mian and the rest, Zhao Qingyi walked over. "Junior Brother Qingyi, even you were eliminated?" Wu Mian asked in surprise. Although Zhao Qingyi was merely a newcomer, the continuous exertion of the limit of the Tree Soul sacred physique meant that his cultivation was not weak. Logically speaking, even if he could not last until the end, he should be able to pass a few more rounds. Zhao Qingyi shook his head and laughed bitterly. "I met Wang Li. F***CK?" The few of them were startled. "You were in the 3rd competition area?" Ding Xiaoyan asked. Zhao Qingyi nodded. "That is indeed quite unlucky. However, losing to Senior Wang Li is not shameful at all." Zhao Qingyi laughed dryly, his gaze sweeping towards the golden door of number 28. "Luckily, Qingyi has some hope of advancing." "Oh right, weren't you and Chu Hen in the same competition area?" "That's right. I did not meet him, but that competition area was a little chaotic. Even the strongest assassin, Senior Sister Ningyu, who was ranked 12th on the Heaven Marshal list, was eliminated." "Oh, who did it? Was it Chu Hen?" Zhao Qingyi asked. "It can't be. I think it should be the person who eliminated me," Wu Mian said with a straight face. But instantly, Ding Xiaoyun and the rest rolled their eyes. "Why don't you tell us who eliminated you? Don't tell us it was Pei Yi and Qi Qianying. They were not in the same competition area as you." "This..." Wu Mian scratched his head and smiled a little embarrassedly. I did not even see who he was, but I can confirm that he is a zone-level arcane master. Moreover, his attacks were very vicious and merciless. If I did not crush the crystal bead in time, I would probably be lying here talking to you guys right now." Zone-level arcane master? Ruthless? The few of them subconsciously swept their gaze towards the golden door of number 24, where Chu Hen was, only to see 2 clear words on the door. "It's him." Zhao Qingyi, Wu Mian, Ding Xiaoyun, and the rest pupils shrank. "It's you." In the wide and flat gladiator arena, between heaven and earth, a cold and desolate aura permeated the air. Inside a huge glyph that spanned several hundred meters, a cold wind blew. Chu Hen was inside, staring at the cold and arrogant figure in front of him. Zone-level arcane master. 9th on the Heaven Marshal list. West Sky Peak, Lu Yao. Enemies on a narrow road. What he said was absolutely correct. Lu Yao looked at Chu Hen with a cold smile. I really admire you. You're able to remain so calm even after falling into my 10,000 sword frenzy killing formation. Chu Hen's handsome brows slightly raised as he replied with a playful smile. I'm also very surprised. Pei Yi isn't here. This time, you actually didn't run when you saw me. Run? What a joke. Do you really think you're invincible in the world? A loser dares to speak so boldly? Oomph. Dense killing intent surged in Lu Liao's eyes. You think too highly of yourself. I didn't set up a glyph in the back mountain the other time. This time, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. To Arcane Master, seizing the initiative was the most important thing. Just like a hunter, no matter how strong the beast was, as long as he had enough time to set up a trap, he would be able to hunt and kill his opponent. Obviously, this time, Lu Liao had already completed his trap and was waiting. 10,000 sword, frenzy, killing formation. Whoosh! An endless amount of spiritual energy burst out from his Naiwan palace. In an instant, the entire arena was filled with a sharp and murderous aura. Accompanied by the chaotic cold air, the large glyph under Chu Hen's feet immediately released a dazzling radiance. Between heaven and earth, a cyclone formed. The sharp radiance swept in all directions. The glyph rotated at high speed. Silver flying swords that seemed to be solid flew out from the runes of the glyph. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless silver flying swords soared into the sky and surrounded Chu Hen, forming a majestic whirlwind of swords. Tens of thousands of flying swords shook the heavens and the earth, tearing through the air and emitting a cold, destructive aura. Chapter 1208. Go to Hell. 10,000 sword killing array. Heaven and earth trembled and the sky lost its color. An incomparable bleak and desolate killing intent tore through the entire field. In an instant, the countless flying swords surrounding Chu Hen were like a huge coiling python. With a spiraling force, they charged towards Chu Hen, who was in the middle of the formation, to kill him. The dense sword shadows were like tens of thousands of arrows, filled with murderous intent. The space was about to be torn apart, and the endless destructive aura was released. Lu Liao's eyes surged with malevolence, as if he could already see Chu Hen's miserable appearance of being torn into pieces. Shoo, shoo, shoo. One after another, incomparably sharp flying swords dragged out powerful air waves in the air. Facing such a concentrated and powerful attack that had nowhere to hide, there was not the slightest bit of fear on Chu Hen's face in the instant that the dangerous aura that was comparable to a flood crushed in all directions. Chu Hen's eyes focused. Following a burst of intense energy rhythmically, a whirlpool-like purple flame tornado suddenly engulfed and expanded outwards. The violent wind howled, and the terrifying power was like a giant wheel of wind and fire that was about to explode. Rumble. The earth cracked, and the space was twisted. The giant purple flame will spun rapidly in the opposite direction of the silver flying sword vortex. The two violent forces tore and collided with each other, like two intertwining steel blades, and a series of heavy shockwaves of power collided. For example, two nebulas collided. Boom! In the next instant, the purple flame tornado suddenly stacked up, and an even more violent force rose into the sky. It was as if they had suddenly entered a volcano that was filled with magma. The huge tornado spread out rapidly, and all the flying swords that were filled with killing intent were like fallen leaves that were swept up by the autumn wind. They were all sent flying in all directions. The disorderly flying swords flew out wantonly and scattered everywhere. Looking at Chu Hen in the center of the purple tornado, Lu Liao's face darkened, and the murderous intent in his eyes intensified. Humph! Don't be too happy. It's just the beginning. Lu Liao put his palms together, and a beautiful Reiki energy intertwined between his palms and arms. Buzz! The brilliant glyph formation shone brightly and operated at a high speed. All the flying swords that had been knocked away returned to the same track. Countless flying swords soared into the sky, like a stream flowing into a river, immediately turning into an incomparably spectacular sword river Great Tao. tens of thousands of flying swords formed a sword river that leaped into the sky. Then, like a giant dragon, it swooped down with the momentum of the Milky Way falling from the sky toward Chu Hen, who was in the center of the purple flame storm. 10,000 swords kill. Kill, the destructive, piercingly cold aura crushed downwards. The austere killing intent enveloped the entire area of the glyph array. A rain of swords fell, covering the sky and covering the earth. Swish, swish, swish. Countless sharp flying swords flew into the flaming storm one after another. Wave after wave of chaotic energy ripples surged out from within. The power of strangulation destroyed everything. When the entire great path of the Sword River entered the purple storm, an especially powerful aura fluctuation came from the void again. Thousands of dazzling array patterns intertwined with each other, and in an instant, a giant sword exuding an endless killing aura quietly formed. Buzz, waves of piercingly cold and majestic sword aura spread in all directions, shaking the sky. The giant sword slanted across the sky, rolling up streams of cold and majestic sword patterns as it slashed down. "Oomph, you could disappear now," Lu Liao sneered. Swoosh! Together with the piercingly cold aura that shook the heavens and the earth, without giving Chu Hen any chance to breathe, the huge sword that was surrounded by chaotic sword patterns followed the momentum of the Sword River and slashed into the purple storm. Boom! The terrifying power of Nirvana directly destroyed the ground, and the entire interior space of the arena suddenly caved in. The ground split open, and the soil exploded. Countless ravines wantonly extended all the way to the seats outside the arena. The majestic sword momentum was like a heavenly tribulation divine punishment, and it firmly struck the center of the storm vortex. It was like a huge stone thrown into deep water, and an earth-shattering purple wave exploded from within, bursting into the heavens and the earth. This attack was truly capable of destroying mountains and rivers. The aftermath of the heavy and surging airwaves could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, almost destroying and flattening the entire arena. "Oomph, arrogant thing. How are you going to survive this time?" Lu Yao's face had a trace of a vicious smile. However, in the next moment, the smile on his face quietly froze. What replaced it was deep shock and disbelief. Under the shroud of the overwhelming sword aura, an extraordinarily handsome young figure stood unscathed. He quietly looked at Lu Liao, who was in front of him, a frivolous smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. "How is this possible?" Lu Liao frowned, and his mind involuntarily began to tremble. Not far in front of Chu Hen, there was actually a strange black shadow hovering. The black shadow silhouette was exactly the same as Chu Hen's, but the domineering power that it revealed had a kind of frightening, mysterious aura. "That's all you've got?" Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows twitched, and a cold playfulness began to surge in his eyes. Lu Liao panicked. At this moment, he sincerely realized that he had underestimated this new disciple in front of him who had only been in the sect for a little more than a year. Without any hesitation, Lu Liao raised his hand, and a crystal bead immediately appeared in the palm of his hand. Chu Hen faintly chuckled. "Before you leave, I'm afraid you'll have to leave something behind." Chu Hen's pupils turned cold, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, the black shadow in front of him flashed in front of Lu Liao like a ghost, and then a black arm reached out. In an instant, countless black rays of light instantly exploded and entangled Lu Liao within it. Following that, an extremely domineering pulling force surged out from the black shadow's palm. A black whirlpool immediately formed in front of Lu Liao. Lu Liao's expression changed drastically, and he was incomparably shocked to find that his Naiwan palace had been forcefully broken, and his street tree seemed to have been uprooted by an invisible hand of a demon. An unprecedented fear spread from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, in his eyes, Chu Hen was simply like a demon from hell. He exclaimed in shock. "No, crack!" The crystal bead in his hand cracked, and exploded into countless crystal shards. A rich golden light quickly enveloped Lu Liao's entire body. However, at the same moment when Lu Liao turned into a ray of light and was teleported out, a wind cave seemed to have leaked out from the center of his brows. Accompanied by a stream of Reiki energy, the shadow of a tree with thousands of swaying runes was directly pulled out by the black shadow. Star Peak. The sect war was progressing in an orderly manner. No, at this moment, an extremely terrified scream was like a boulder smashing into a mirror, breaking the current calm atmosphere without any warning. Following that, a layer of violent energy fluctuation shook the number 24 golden door, and an extremely miserable figure directly fell out from the inside, heavily smashing onto the ground. No. That person crawled up in a crazed manner, intending to once again rush into the number 24 golden door. However, after a few steps, his chi and blood surged up, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He staggered and fell head first on the ground. Everyone present was stunned. Each and every one of them looked at the figure on the ground with astonishment. It seems to be Lu Liao. It can't be. A medical elder on Star Peak immediately flew onto the battle stage, and then went forward to check on the other party's condition. Following that, the medical elder's expression suddenly changed. Both of his eyes were wide open, and he looked at the 4 Peak Masters on the Star Peak's viewing platform in shock. Dao Street Tree has been destroyed. Boom! A few simple words were transmitted into everyone's ears, and it was like a bolt from the blue. Every martial ancestor realm disciple in the audience was completely shocked. Even the elders on Xingqing Peak had shocked expressions on their faces. West Dome Peak Master Situ Song frowned, and his expression immediately became gloomy. The street tree had been destroyed. This meant that Lu Liao, who was ranked 9th on the Heavenly Martial list, had been directly reduced to a cripple. To any inscription master, destroying the street tree was definitely a blow that was heavier than death. Who did it? This question appeared in everyone's mind. Such a cruel and merciless method. Who exactly did it? It's the 24th competition area again. The 24th. The competition area that eliminated the most outstanding assassin on the Heavenly Martial list, Ningyu, early on. Everyone's gaze simultaneously swept towards the number 24 golden door. On top of the door, there were still the 2 words Lu Liao floating clearly. From the beginning, his name had occupied the door. And at this moment, bang, a crisp sound rang out, and like the shattering of ice crystals, the 2 words Lu Liao directly turned into countless crystal fragments. Following that, a brand new word gradually emerged. Chapter 1209. Bang! Under the horrified gazes of the audience, the 2 words Lu Liao on the golden door number 24 quietly crumbled into a bubble of shadow. Then, 2 brand new words slowly appeared. Chuhen. Hua. When they saw the 2 words, the entire fighting ring was in an unprecedented uproar. Everyone's eyes were wide open, their faces filled with disbelief. It's Chuhen. Wu Mian's voice was trembling from the southern spectator stand. Beside him, Zhao Qingyi, Ding Xiaoyun, and the others were also stunned speechless. Even the Peak Courtyard Masters on Xingqing Peak could not help but squint their eyes. Everyone in the martial sect was familiar with the name Chuhen. Before he entered the sect, he became famous because of his martial talent beyond the 9th grade and profound body's bloodline limit. He shone in the martial competition with the newcomers, and then he fought head-on with young Master Qingsheng, who was ranked 11th on the Heaven Martial leaderboard. Just over a year ago, there was a rumor in the sect that he had fled the martial sect overnight because he offended Pei Yi. And now, he actually announced his powerful return in such a way. So he's Chuhen. Below the ring, Ningyu pursed her red lips and clenched her fists. That pair of eyes that were as deep as the Milky Way unconsciously appeared in her mind. Everyone stared at the 2 words on the golden door, number 24, with solemn eyes. Then they looked at the unconscious Lu Liao. Destroying the street tree. This method was simply cruel. It's really scary. Who exactly is that Chuhen? Even senior brother Lu Liao lost so miserably. He's even more pitiful than Qi Xing. From today onwards, Lu Liao will no longer be on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. Yes, Chu Hen will definitely replace this position. Everyone was discussing and exclaiming. But at the same time, there were people who were doubtful. Don't say it too early. It's not certain if it was Chu Hen who did it. That's right. Look at senior brother Lu Liao. He doesn't have any injuries on his body. Obviously, he didn't have an intense battle. No matter how powerful Chu Hen was, it was impossible for him to destroy his opponent's street tree in an instant, right? Therefore, I think senior brother Lu Liao must have made a mistake and caused the power of the runes to backfire, thus destroying his street tree. Are you kidding me? With Lu Liao's mastery of runes, how could he possibly make a mistake? And he even suffered a backlash? Humph, such a big brain hole. Nothing's impossible. If you often walk by the river, it's inevitable that you'll get your shoes wet. Otherwise, how could you explain the lack of battle marks on Lu Liao's body? Don't tell me that Chu Hen directly put his hand in his senior brother Lu Liao's Naiwan palace and crushed his street tree? Don't be silly. Even the 8 peak masters wouldn't be so straightforward, right? You're absolutely right. It's most likely because of senior brother Lu Liao's mistake that Chu Hen, who is ranked second in terms of wins, replaced him. A bunch of jealous fellows. Because they did not have a direct understanding of the situation, there were all sorts of guesses and opinions about many things. Some firmly believed that it was Chu Hen's doing. Some thought that it was Lu Liao's own mistake. There were also some who were confused and did not believe either side. However, one thing was undeniable. From today onwards, Lu Liao would be completely removed from the Heavenly Martial Leaderboard, and there would be no chance for him to make a comeback. This was punishment, and also revenge. It stemmed from Chu Hen's ruthless revenge. On Xingqing Peak, the masters of the peak schools all had different feelings. Mysterious East Peak Master A.O. Yunzhuang and South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui felt pity. The loss of a zone-level room master would affect the overall standard of the Wu Zone disciples. West Dome Peak Master Situ Song's face was gloomy and his eyes were filled with anger. After all, Lu Liao was a disciple of his West Dome Peak. Now that his street tree was destroyed in front of everyone, it was an indirect slap to Situ Song's face. Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang still maintained his silence, deep in thought. On the contrary, Deacon Elder Lu, who was in charge of this sect tournament, frowned, looking like he had a lot on his mind. One had to know that he was in charge of recruiting new disciples in the Qinqing province. He was also the one who left out Chu Hen and ordered him to carry out the assessment, while Yao, Long Xuan, and the others were exempted from the assessment. If Chu Hen really defeated Lu Liao, it would mean that Elder Lu had made an error in judgment. Time passed minute by minute and second by second. More and more contestants were being eliminated. The vast crowd began to fill up the spectators' stands around the Ling Xiao battle platform, just like at the beginning. The grand and majestic spectator stand was magnificent and majestic. For example, the huge ship floating in the vast void. As time passed, the number of contestants being transported out of the 32 Golden Gates decreased. Here and there. Each time, there was a long time gap. This also meant that the top 32 were already at the end of the promotion round. It was not far from the quota. It's getting more and more nervous. Hang in there. Wu Mian stood uneasily as he looked at the 3 names above the 9, 17, and 24 gates. It's not even you. Why are you so nervous? Ding Xiaoyan rolled his eyes at him. What do you know? It's been a long time since 4 people from our Beichen Peak Academy made it to the top 32. Don't you think I'm nervous? That's true. After so long, there's finally a glimmer of hope. It's worth looking forward to. Zhao Qingyi also looked anxiously at the name Zhao Qingkai above the Golden Gate number 28. Do your best. Qingkai will definitely last until the end. Wong. Suddenly, at this moment, a disheveled figure was ejected from the Golden Gate number 3, and the entire Golden Gate suddenly blossomed with a dazzling light. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The 2 words Wang Li on it shone even more brilliantly, swaying with rainbow-like rays of light. He advanced, Elder Lu announced excitedly from the star-raising summit stage. Then, with a heavy muffled bang, the entire luxurious and majestic golden door, number 3, shattered like a mirror. Under the nervous gaze of everyone present, it shattered into golden fragments that filled the sky. An invisible and powerful aura spread out in all directions. Everyone's eyes lit up. A young figure with an extraordinary bearing stood high up in the sky. It's Senior Brother Wang Li. Haha, amazing. No wonder he's the champion of the last sect battle. He's actually the first to advance to the next round. Senior Brother Wang Li will definitely win. The South Spirit Peak Academy disciples were extremely excited. Peak Master Ning Qiushui also revealed a satisfied look of praise. In the next moment, the Golden Gate number 6 not far away also released a powerful energy wave. The 2 words "Pei Yi" above the gate were even more dazzling. Bang! A powerful wave of air surged in all directions, and a figure that revealed a cold and domineering aura directly suppressed the crowd. Senior Brother Pei Yi also advanced. Almost at the same time, these 2 people are really powerful. Then, the Golden Gate number 1 was unwilling to be left out and exploded. The sky was filled with a rain of petals, and it was a peerless and extraordinary scene. The Dongxian peaks, Qi Qianying followed closely behind. My cold hasn't gotten any better, so I went to buy some medicine in the afternoon. I originally planned to update twice a day, but these few days my brothers have been especially generous, so I feel bad if I don't write more.